Welcome back to the SPL, everybody. Now, we do have a bit of a curse that I need to talk about at the top of this death segment, and it is the curse of the most valuable primer. Because with that loss, I think seven in a row, 7 games, 7 sets in a row, whoever the MVP, the most valuable primer of the week is, has lost. So we are 7 sets in a loss streak for whoever the most valuable primer is. Now, that said, it is not a curse to be a primer at home. And you at home can be a primer and get a whole slew of benefits. You get free games each month, free in-game content for a whole bunch of games, free subs to your favorite Twitch channels. SMITE Pro is a pretty good option, and so much more. So thanks again to Prime for being with us here, and hopefully with you at home here this year in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. And I'm sorry to the teams who have had the most valuable primer on their team over the last couple of weeks. Been a curse.
It makes the MVP vote on Sundays a lot funnier to me, though.
Doesn't it, right?
It's like, hey, you did really well last week. Let's see what happens.
You lose now. Because it was Zapman this week, right? They lost both of their sets.
Zap this week. The week prior was Sot, I believe, who lost both. Prior to that was Panda, who lost both. Prior to that was Lasbro, who won one,
lost one.
It won the first 2, though. And that's the real winner.
So it was a blessing for a while, and now we are 7 sets in a row for the MV Primer of the week. Let's look at the matchups we've got. We've got 3 matchups, remember, every single Sunday, triple header of SPL action. One of them in the books, and the 7th loss in a row for the MVP. This time the Atlantis Leviathans have it on their squad, and it's a 2-0 for the Jade Dragons to start the day. Camelot Kings versus Solar Scarabs, and then to end the week, the Olympus Bolts up against the Valhalla Valkyries. Now, an uphill matchup for the Solar Scarabs as far as standings go. The Scarabs have added a couple of wins here. They've gotten a few rolling, beat the Valkyries in just their previous set. But this is the toughest task they have faced in a while as a team, going up against the 9-1 Camelot Kings, who have been playing some near-flawless SMITE here as of late. And you know, I think, Gore, you look at these two teams, we can talk about, curses. I think for a while we've talked about the Game 3 curse of the Solar Scarabs. Yeah. I think there's some value in, and I want to ask Inbowned about this. Like, yes, you keep going to Game 3. You don't want to lose the Game 3s, but, it's got to tell you something that you're at least able to take some games off every team in the league, And so I think you want to be winning. At least you're not losing 2-0. You know what I mean? You're at least able to take some games.
And I think it's something I got, when we interviewed Slaney after that last set, where it was kind of that realization where, sometimes the guys are button heads, right? Like, you're going to have differing opinions. It's just how well people handle it, things like that, and the progress that they've made. And I think that what we would see is that the Scarabs, whenever everything was lined up, just thrash people, man. I mean, they look awesome in the right moments. It's just that getting those moments, unfortunately for them, haven't been as consistently every set. So, you get 3 games every set because you're guaranteed at one point to be able to come in and showcase what you guys are capable of doing. But then, whether it's a one slight misstep in a single game, or sometimes we've seen some of the games that get out of hand pretty quickly. I think their early game's gotten a lot better. I think they've transitioned into some pretty clean late games. Yep. But it's making those happen more often for them, more consistently for them, that I think has been the overall challenge. But really, the trajectory, it's been such a pleasure to watch, because, you go back and watch this team at the beginning of Season 8, and it was a slump. And then, they went through some really, really big roster changes, and at that point, you kind of you hit the reset button, right? Like, all the progress that you might have made kind of gets reset, because you got, I think, 2 new guys, a lot of work. But since that moment forward, it has been nothing but progress forward for them. We get to see an insane run at Worlds from them. And while this year, I think, has been a little slower to get the burners going, I think that this team still has a lot on the horizon for us.
Well, remember, maybe the most 3-game sets of any team in the league. But of the last couple, they've been 2-game sets, with the most recent one being the 2-0 win over the Valhalla Valkyries. The duo lane's been a real win condition for the Solar Scarabs team. One of the members of that duo lane, Inbowned, one standing by with me now for the pre-game interview. You can't do that. Those are our viewers.
I pointed to the wrong camera, too. What's up, guys?
Unlucky. I guess that's fair, because you were pointing not at the viewers.
Too.
Right. Inbound, talk to me a bit about maybe player mentality here. Zoom out with me, because we talk about a lot of 3-game sets. You've had maybe more 3-game sets than any team in the league. Is there any confidence boost, despite losing some 3-game sets, that you can at least take them to 3 games? Is that a mentality that you guys explore at all, or is the loss a loss regardless of how many games it takes?
You know, since we're in Summer Split, we're just here for a good time.
Sure.
You know, we just want to be at the studio as long as possible. We try to take those games to 3, you know. It's just more enjoyable to be here. Love hanging out with you guys. So
Stay in the air conditioning.
Yeah, love the AC. We just enjoy our time here.
Right, I don't want to go back outside as long as I can be in here.
Try to stay here until the sun goes down.
Hopefully the team booths have been nice and cool for you guys then.
You guys got it good.
Perfect temp. You get the 2-0 win over the Valkyries last week, so you sped out of the studio last week. What do you think kind of aligned right for the squad in your last matchup? You know, there's been a lot of moving and shaking, feels like strategy adjustments. What do you think worked so well in your last matchup?
I just think we go through kind of inconsistent phases in Summer Split. We don't really like kind of kick it into gear until we get to like more fall. Probably just like our team, just more enjoying like the roadmap to Worlds and not. I mean, we should obviously be taking every game serious, but you know, we're here for a good time.
There are different levels of importance as far as times of years go, and this is the time to really find yourself as a team and then kick it into high gear later on in the year. Going up against the Camelot Kings, this team has looked, not to mince words, pretty untouchable here as of late.
They look okay.
All right, so you're not all that worried. What do you think it takes to beat a team like the Camelot Kings?
I mean, the thing is like they're probably one of the worst 9-1 teams we've seen in like SMITE history. I mean, I don't think we have to like do too much special. We just got to go out there, play some SMITE, have some fun, and it should be pretty easy.
Logging in will be enough for you.
Yeah,
guys
I mean,
there.
as long as we get into the game 5 strong, like I'm confident.
Fair enough, Inbound. I appreciate your time and best of luck in this matchup.
Thank you.
Like, I think that's a mindset that we have seen on basically every team core where. You know, Phase 2 playoffs, they are around the corner. SMITE Masters is the second one of the year. Summer Masters just around the corner. Of course, you want to win that. That's good tournament practice. But if the eyes of these teams are on Worlds, this is the time of year in a competitive environment to wheel up some of those strategies, figure things out. Now, I will say, on a zoomed-out note, establishing like a winning culture as a part of a team is important. Even though these matches aren't Worlds matches, Worlds qualifying matches, I think, and this is not what Inbound is saying, but getting a team used to winning is just as important as making sure your team avoids getting used to losing, even though these games aren't as important as maybe potential Worlds matches might be. Now, a team that is very used to winning, Gore, are the Camelot Kings. And Inbound, of course, joking around a bit, because this team does look near unstoppable.
Yeah.
The one team that has handed them a loss in Phase 2 so far were the Leviathans. And I love that shirt from CaptainTwig. He knows where it's at. And they just beat the Leviathans. Kings have a real good look, in my opinion, at a perfect second half of Phase.
It's one of those things I was telling you, and I tweeted this out last night, but like I went through and found like teams like picks that they've played against, what their win rate is against those things like that. And like testing it on teams like the Kings is a little obnoxious because they've won a majority of their games. Like they've had 4 game losses in Phase 2, like just individual game losses. So 2 of those are the set they lost, and then otherwise 2 3-game sets. Very, very dominating, performance from them. And so it makes it a little skewed when you're looking at that kind of data. And I think it is like this team because, like you said, not only used to winning, I think at this point, but a lot of guys that are on there, like because of their history, like they're used to losing too. You know, like they've definitely gone through bad streaks and had moments where things fell flat for them. I think they've done a really good job transitioning.
Look, Genetics has been a vocal leader for this squad as well. Gore, you
Yes.
talk about transitioning, getting this team up and running. Genetics, I'll tell you this. In the last 6 games, Genetics has died 3 times. 3 deaths as a support in the last 6 games that the Camelot Kings have played. And it's been a lot of initiators. Like, look, a pick like Ymir. I'm expecting a handful of deaths every single game on that pick. You throw up a wall, but
You should that 3 should be every game.
You're a slow ice dude. You know what I mean? You're gonna get shut down.
You're literally walking into the other team.
Genetics is a combined. Well, I'm not gonna add up all the assists because there's a lot of them. He's died twice in 3 games on Ymir. My point being, Genetics has been playing such a consistent brand of SMITE for this team. And it's made this Kings team, again, build a culture that expects to win. Whether or not they are qualifying to Worlds with this set or not doesn't seem to matter. It's a team that expects to get better, expects to improve week over week. Yes, they're going to have some fun. But if there are glaring issues, a team that does not shy away from feeling like they need to improve.
Did you see Scream in their player? Like my man is lounging.
No, I didn't, because he is horizontal and off of his player cam.
He's barely in his player cam. And look, that's something that you can only get with the SMITE economic chairs.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying.
Super comfort.
That's
reliability.
If Katie hadn't stolen mine, I'd be leaning back in it way more often.
Well, here's the thing, Gore. The context of this is that it's just elsewhere in your place, right? You can go
but
get it
she's
back.
actively sitting in it all the time.
That's true. You can't just steal it out from underneath.
And man,
it.
I don't.
Anti-theft protection on the new
our
model.
hallway is not very wide.
Sure.
So carrying chairs through there might have been one of the.
Use code SMITEMAX, by the way, if you need to get another one.
Do we still have that?
Yeah, we have the little guy that rotates around in the bottom right.
Oh, sure.
The little graphic, I think. Use code SMITEMAX. I saw it just the previous game. Nemesis, the first pick here for Scream, who lounging on a pick like this against the Valkyries, game number 1, 4-2-9 on the net.
To victory!
And on the flip side, King Arthur, 20 games played, really, this phase? I guess for a while it's been a hefty amount of King Arthur, diversified a bit, but like when there was only one warrior being played, it felt like King Arthur was the warrior who had stuck around in variety. Probably has played a good majority of those picks. And then Eset as well. A very good look for this Kings team, because not only has Genetics played it, and Genetics looked good on it, but so is BigManTingz out of mid. Both players very capable of playing this pick in very different ways and very different roles.
Having that flexibility is just so wild to me, right? Being able to throw it, because you see it a little bit, Paul, like if the Titans luck it in, it's more than likely going to Paul, because Paul's played it more often than we've seen Roar play it. You watched it, some of these other teams, if it goes to the Bolts, it's kind of 50-50, but more often if I saw an Eset, I think it's going to end up leaning towards Jake, things like that. The Kings, I think it truly does fall in the half and half. Tings looks amazing on this pick, but so does Genetics. The control that it can bring is really solid. And locking it in so high up is maybe one of my favorite things, just because this is a team that can then shift however they need to in order to make sure that they can find the win, right? If they want a support, if they need a support, or think that this Eset won't work as support, they can just grab a Guardian later in the draft, and Genetics can play damn near anything on that tab, plus some out of others. And then, if they think, you know what, I don't want to take this into like a Huang, they can just go ahead and throw it over to Genetics and make sure that Tings has a different pick.
Absolutely. And look, you get some great initiation with the Erlang Shen in as well. That's been one of Twig's strongest looks over the last couple of sets as well here for this team. And the Scarabs get the core of their damage, all of their damage online right now. Xbal, Huang, Nemesis. And good consistent damage here as well. Now, with the Chernobog taken away, as the only ADC banned out, Xbal Gore strong enough to stand alone, I suppose, that with only the Chernobog off the table, Xbal is still, number 2. We're going towards it here for the Solar Scarabs.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that Stuart, go back last week, like he played it, I think every game he had the opportunity to, only didn't when it was banned. I think the week before that, very similar. If you know that Stu's going to pop off, you want to give him someone who's a really good late game hyper carry. Xbalanque has been on the rise anyway, and he's looked damn good playing it. I think that this lines up. And, it's one of those things, we always talk about it, and we talk about Scream being like the carry, the win condition for this team. I think Stuart's put his name up in that equation very highly and very consistently over the last few weeks. And I think that getting him on a pick like Xbalanque lets you be active in team fights whether you're there or not, lets you have some really good survivability in terms of disengage, and has a lot of turnaround potential, damage potential, late game carry potential. So like as a pick, I think it's really solid, and when Stuart's been playing it, I think it has been a really, really good combination.
And Olorun now left open and locked in for the Camelot Kings. So again, there's still some opportunities here for flexibility. Now, Netrioid has played this Olorun pick in the past.
Yeah.
And once the Chiron gets taken away, because Chiron has been like Netrioid's go-to over the last few sets, and so once Chiron gets taken away, it'll be something a bit different. 4 Chiron games in the last 6 for Netrioid. Heimdall has been the other 2. But could be mid, but you like Olorun having a support system over on the left side of the map, get up and running with that sanctified.
I think even more importantly, it's not even like I like the support system over there. I also like the idea that like just there's so much foot traffic in mid, just keep him out of there. Like if his beads are down, if his ult is down, there's too many people running around there that it becomes a danger zone for him. And so it's one of those, like, he can work out well in mid, and, you know, we were talking about this, I think it was yesterday.
I will own
you know, a long-winded rant I had about how, like, the rest of his kit's pretty good, right? And it feels solid. You've got good clear, good safety, some sustain, things like that. But your ult's just really important, and you're very easy to kill when you don't have that. So shimmy it on off to the side.
Well, Cabrakan adds a bit of aggression into this Solar Scarabs draft. It'll likely be a solo lane Cabrakan for Scary D here, Gore. And Scary D has taken some time to I think, get the wheels spinning. I think in Phase 2 has looked like a stronger player than he did with the Scarabs over in Phase number 1. And Cabrakan will allow maybe a bit more aggression and some pressure over in that lane. Up against the King Arthur, though. A tall task. It's an Izanami hover and a Rom hover. So both of the considerations for the Kings here, Gore, are for their ADC. Nothing guaranteeing, again, that this pick goes to the duo lane in Neith for BigManTingz. Got to be all 3 of those wins. I don't know if another team in the league has been playing Neith, at least a couple of them for the Camelot Kings, maybe one outlier for a different team. But standard Kings draft here. World Weaver into a gank, a 9 turns blessing. It has just worked consistently.
Yeah, they're all 3, by the way.
Yeah,
like just like you mentioned that, I was like, you know what? Has anyone ever touched it? No, it is just them. And I like the way it works. I mean, look at this. You've now got across the field King Arthur, who's a lane bully, an Erlang Shen, who's going to show up with taunt, with pin, a lot of control. Early game aggression is going to exist over there. Left side. Zoom over, you've got the Olorun, who's going to have a decent amount of clear, right? He's going to maintain himself in lane. Sanctified Fields, so whether it's team fights on the left side, ganks on the left side, you're then going to have a lot. But then you've got a stun from an Eset, a silence from an Eset, circle of protection from the Eset, and at any given time, just an artillery shot from mid lane that's going to guarantee a stun. Whether the damage half the time, you can ignore it. Sometimes it feels great. You get the kill with the ult, thumbs up. If you just stun somebody and let Twig get the kill, let Stuart, I'm on the other team, man. Let Netrioid get the kill. Whichever one of those ends up working out for you guys. I just think it works really well for the Kings here, playing it out of mid, and I think that it's one that really lines up well.
Look, the Camelot Kings, here's the thing. It is always going to be hard to bet against this team, right? Because this style of composition is something that has worked for them before. Any style of composition seemingly works for this team. It's always going to be an uphill battle for the Solar Scarabs. But I think the Scarabs drafting into some aggression here, Gore. You throw the Cabrakan in there. The Huang feels good in the first few levels of the game. You add Nem into your composition as well. I do think the Scarabs are playing to their own strengths a bit with their draft.
I recognize, I'm going to go ahead and preface this, that I recognize that these numbers are skewed because the Kings have just been winning a whole ton. Yeah. But they haven't lost a game versus a Huang at all this phase.
How many have they played against?
6.
They're 6-0 against Huang.
They're 6-0 against a Huang. So that is, it's one of those.
Because in reality, this is the meeting of 2 different styles of sets between these teams. Not many 3-game sets at all for the Camelot Kings. Like 1 or 2 sprinkled here or there against the Bolts and the Leviathans. The Kings go 3, and it's been some 2-0 sets. Where on the flip side, the Scarabs tend to always go to 3 games outside of their last couple of sets. And so I think it's like an unstoppable force and an immovable object meeting here.
I also think that the Kings play different styles in-game, right? Like a lot of where the Scarabs' success has been lately has been, okay, let's get Scream ahead early on, and then we'll just kind of ride that wave into the late game, and ideally we're just so far ahead that there's not really a full 5-on-5. Like, we always have an advantage. Whereas the Kings don't want to do anything. Like, I mean, they'll fight you if they have to, and I'm sure we're going to see it in this set. But I think that they are a team that will be patient, will play for the late game, will play for the 5-on-5s. And so that's really what I'm looking at here is, you know, like not only set-wise, but even just in-game, they play for 2 separate portions. And when I look at what the Scarabs have, I think that this is a squad that can do really well in the late game, but it feels like something that, again, kind of wants to get hands-on a little bit early on. You've got some good pressure in mid. But will it translate late game, right? And that's the thing. A lot of those picks, to me, 5-on-5 in a late game, equal team fight for the Scarabs look great.
Right.
But you've got really good lane presence and bully presence from the Kings early on. Their macro farm has been insane. Like, that's where people have been faltering against them, is these neutral mid camps. You've got the Harpies, anything like that, even like little steals in the jungle. And so I don't know if you can anticipate, a full, like, hey, let's get to 23 minutes and then just fight them 5-on-5. I think you have to assume you're going into 23 minutes with the Kings having a couple thousand gold ahead of you.
Oh, it's just the way it goes. The Leviathans did find a way up against the Camelot Kings earlier this weekend to slow down the game to the point where the Leviathans had like a 1,000, 2,000 gold lead at times, even extended that lead pretty far. But the Kings, and we talked about this score, actually you and I were casting that set, the Kings so effective at the, what do we call it, the tactical retreat style of play at times. Where
you
even
call them
if
George Washington.
The George Washingtons of the SPL, and I'll stand by that because they win many, many games. They win the war, even if you end up having to lose the battle. We've lost one initial battle here. We're going to have to remake the lobby. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back for game one. Appreciate the patience, everybody. Back on track to get into game one between the Camelot Kings and the Solar Scarabs. And Gore, we have talked a bit. I mean, there are a lot of things meeting here in game number one. The style of play from the Kings versus the style of play of the Scarabs. The ability of the Scarabs to push sets long and the Camelot Kings' ability to close out sets in 2 games. And it's a really unique, I think, meeting of the minds here going into game one. Because even though they're towards the bottom of the standings, the Scarabs have this style of play that could catch teams off guard.
And that's what I'm most interested in seeing today, because I feel like a lot of it, like, overarching has been get ahead early, translate really well, usually with Scream leading the way, win the game. Stuart gets a mid-game impact, and then suddenly the team spikes. And so you follow like a weird curve for the Scarabs of their wins. Whereas the Kings are just kind of like hang out for a while and then beat you real hard, because they've realistically it's a flat line up until it spikes, but what they've been doing is getting lots of gold and just being super far ahead of you the entire time. So I'm looking at this as a really interesting melding, because the Scarabs comp that you're looking at over there, that should fight in a 5-on-5 late game team fight incredibly well. This comp should do really well in an early game setting. Like, I think everything that the Kings have can start at level 3 and then just keep going from that point forward. Maybe the Olorun has to, take a little bit longer, but everybody else is pretty much online at that point and able to get something done across the map, which feels like it's the antithesis to both of their playstyles and the opposite of what I expect from either of them to be able to do. But I think that it might end up being a little worse for the Scarabs here, because if the Kings typically farm better, and they have a comp that gets online a little quicker, and they can utilize it probably a little faster, and you're probably going to struggle in those early game fights that you've been winning in the past.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, the Kings have the ability to send the World Weaver out, set up for CaptainTwig, and get things going that way. They also have the ability to disengage from a lot of these fights somewhat effectively as well. Now, I still look towards late game team fights and the scrappiness of the Scarabs comp and the ability to find picks and get aggressive. I have like a nightmare brewing in my head, though, about a sanctified field and then a circle protection layered on top of that in some type of way. Really seems like the Kings have something figured out, and it's a composition they've figured out plenty in the past. We'll talk about it no further. Camelot Kings versus Solar Scarabs, game number 1.
Thank you so much, Dave and Gore. Our first game in our second set of the day in Week 6 of the SPL, the Camelot Kings and the Solar Scarabs. Both these teams sticking with their guns on what's been working for them in the past. We'll have to see how that battle of the minds and kind of battle of the brawn goes out between these two teams. It's J-Mac, Miff, and Doug bringing the action in this second game. And I think it was an interesting stat that got brought up, that this Neith has only been played by the Kings so far this phase, and they've won every single game that they've had with it.
Yeah, just clean, really clean ganks, I think, is what Neith affords you, right? Wherever CaptainTwig is headed, he's going to have that massive World Weaver ultimate right behind him. But I want to talk about power curves of these teams real quick, J-Mac. Because when I look at this Camelot Kings draft, it's almost like an inverse parabolic trajectory, all right? Like, I'm talking like the upside down one. They are very, very strong in the hyper early game, and they are very, very strong in the hyper late game. But there is going to be a dip in the mid game where I think the Solar Scarabs can really look to exploit some of these fights, particularly around Scary D and Scream. So I'm excited for this pacing. I know that the desk had brought up that the Camelot Kings probably will be trying to push that envelope early on, but I'm thinking their hyper early game advantage isn't going to last super long, especially in this double magical duo lane. Once Inbound gets a little bit of defense rolling, can really make it difficult for the Camelot Kings to leverage this Eset, because generally circle protection is your objective secure, and generally early objectives are around the Pyro.
No, Tremors won't stop CaptainTwig. Has that turtle form to dash out. Double dash by Scream. The 2v2 in solo is so far going over to the Solar Scarabs. Beads are gone by Scream, and he's left Scary D all by himself. Slow is good from the Slice and Dice to keep them at bay. The Camelot Kings will not pursue any further onto the pursuit of the solo laner. And talking about, kind of some of the builds out there, we've been seeing a lot of the mannequins come from BigManTingz to go for that kind of tactical nuke style of play once you get to that late game. But we're also seeing mannequins stepped out of Netrioid.
Yeah, just a little bit of early game presence. Olorun already very, very strong, levels 1 through 3. That second ability, one of the best wave clears you can ask for, and having the ability to go and walk into the jungle, clear out some of these camps, resustain a bit, going to be very nice for the Camelot Kings ADC. Mannequin's Mace, a pretty nice upgrade option as well. I had thought we'd see something similar to the Soul build that we had seen a little bit earlier this week with the Bancroft's Nimble, but maybe we don't. It's a ring start for Netrioid, and you're getting plenty of attack speed from that.
Ooh, Hammer from Inbound actually steals away the larger Harpy inside that camp, so that's a nice XP given over to the support of the Solar Scarabs, but in trade, he's been losing a lot of his HP in the battle, walking past Gen X more often. And kind of going back to that curve you were talking about, what's kind of that level projection Genetics in danger.
So
We'll be
much
fine.
healing.
No, a dash away by Stuart. Not going to continue that one. But what's kind of that level projection? You think like level 6 to 8 is kind of where it's big for the Camelot Kings, and then it kind of falls down until we get to that level 20 point?
I would say around level 5 through 10 would be really good for the Solar Scarabs. And then we're going to see it even out a little bit between 10 to 15. At 15, the Camelot Kings probably back to their strength point. It all depends on where the leads lie and who's got the most gold on the map at the time of, whether or not the Solar Scarabs can enforce fights on the left-hand side of the map, because I think that is, for the most part, where they're going to want to fight. Playing against CaptainTwig and Variety in the early game, King Arthur and Erlang Shen, not exactly the ideal situation for the Solar Scarabs. So I think pacing to be determined from this one. Otherwise, mid matchup, essentially pretty handshake. Neith very safe. Huang incredibly safe. Neither one of these junglers really has the best opportunities to gank the other mid laners. So I'm thinking this game probably determined by the duo.
Variety uses one dash to get out. Scary D cannot close the gap in time, so Variety will be fine over in the solo lane. It does have to go up against a split type of damage. Finds the push knockback on a Scary D. Finds some decent damage on the way, but too much damage thrown his way.
Psycho.
And Screammmmm will pick up first blood for the Solar Scarabs.
Variety just refused to give up any ground. And in that situation, Variety wins if the minion wave goes into his tower. Because no matter what, losing out on like, I don't know, 3 minions worth of gold is worth it, considering Scary D had to split 6 minions worth of gold in experience. So if Variety just doesn't die, he's owning there. Scary D would have been falling behind just by rope, but because he just refuses to give up ground, and I get it, King Arthur, you don't want to back up, don't want to show your back to your enemy, real samurai Bushido code stuff. Maybe just do it in that situation. That was a completely unnecessary death.
Just stubborn player. We talk about it all the time with the Kings. We talk about it a lot with Variety specifically. Some of his players have even mentioned it on his team, that he is just a stubborn player, does not want to back down, but I think you're right to say maybe there is a time and a place to show your back to the enemy. That would have been a good one, and might have to show it again as he gets ulted by Screammmmm.
Wrong
will
way,
dash
bud.
to the minions and will grab the minion wave, but he's leading them right over to CaptainTwig. But a taunt off the mark, the pin is good. Ultimate blocked by Scary D. The Tremors will be slowed down right away. Variety's got some mobility to get out, but the walls from Scary D will lock him in place yet again. But now they've been locked in with CaptainTwig. A little bit more damage to take down Scary D is all that they need. CaptainTwig finds it with the pin. 1-for-1
trade. Genetics makes the rotation, as does Inbound. Screammmmm able to secure the blue buff. The Solar Scarabs, well, they at least find their pick onto Variety yet again. Keeping this King Arthur behind would have been massive for Scary D had he not been the one to trade out, but because he is, can't finish up that Warlock staff just yet. Good pull.
Netrioid will have Sanctified Field. Dash in from Stuart, gets him quite a big distance, but that knockback from the third ability on Netrioid will keep Stuart locked inside the Sanctified Field and allow for Netrioid to make it out peacefully.
Yeah, clean stuff. And speaking of that dual lane and Genetics making that rotation, we kind of gloss over it at the beginning of the game. It's meditation in the first slot. It's a whole lot of HP regen, a whole lot of mana regen on a god that's got pretty decent sustain and survivability already. I think it could be more so that ascetic meditation coming back into play. I mean, I've been loving what we've seen from that relic, removing some of those CDs, making your team a little bit more active in these team fights, especially on a composition where it's so clear what your go buttons are, right? 9 turns blessing, sanctified field, circle protection. It's time to play because you really don't want to fall back afterwards. So meditation in that first slot, curious, will allow Genetics to just kind of play aggressively throughout the early.
2v2 yet again. Screammmmm will ult Variety, and so will Scary D, but the World Weaver comes in to deal some damage back towards Screammmmm. Variety dashes away, goes up in the sky with Scary D, while CaptainTwig deals with Screammmmm on the ground. Variety able to Beyblade his way on out. CaptainTwig needs one more shot, and the dog will get it, but he'll trade his life out to Scary D.
Scary D picks up the kill, but can he survive the engagement from BigManTingz? Root is good, hits the weave and takes him down. Mechanical excellence from the Neith player. Camelot Kings, even on ping. What's it matter if you're hitting your shots like that?
I mean, that's why he's been given the nickname BigManTingz. Doesn't matter what region, where he's playing, he's still able to land those shots no matter the god that you give over to him. And with that rotation over, a 1 kill for him, 2 now for CaptainTwig in the jungle, and Inbound a little bit late on his rotation to deal with anything on that side of the map. We even saw Genetics stay in the mid lane and soak up a wave of his own just because of the rotation from his mid laner, so that way the Kings don't miss out on any of their farm with that rotation in.
Sacrificing nothing but gaining a whole lot are the Camelot Kings. Stuart's been stuck here for just too long. I had thought we'd see so much more presence from the Solar Scarabs in Stuart's lane, but shame on me. The MO of the Solar Scarabs has always been camping that solo. You just think that matchup with Erlang, Shen, and King Arthur in the early, I would be avoided. That's the only way I could describe it. That is a very strong two-man core. Variety falling down early, I suppose, maybe influencing the Solar Scarabs' decision-making on where to put that pressure. But it does not come without sacrifice. Stuart is really suffering over in the dual lane. That tower, already half HP, 8 minutes in,
Yeah.
against an Olorun?
That's rough.
That's crazy.
It's not a great spot to be in. Genetics is standing by, going for the flank. Stuart does have his dash, I believe, still. Silence out, has to use the beads, use the dash for the immunity of the World Weaver. Ultimate used onto the Hunter, but Stuart at least able to make it back to the tower. Despite the fact of how low the tower is, it seems that Stuart's going to be locked under there for quite some time, Mifflin.
That's got to be such a frustrating situation for Stu as well. I mean, speaking from personal experience, when you're losing a lane and they're still sending that much to you, you just got to think, why?
CaptainTwig, double taunt, but that was a double taunt to his own death. Scary D and Scream, once again, running through the jungle, able to find a pick onto CaptainTwig, put his second death for the team. The Solar Scarabs, with those kills, could try and find another one. Variety gets stunned out of his spin, has the second one to get out, and the empowered ultimate to dash back to the safety of the tower. This right side of the map is so volatile right now, Mifflin.
Yeah, it just feels like either one of these teams is going to have the lead at a moment's notice. Recently, it's been the Solar Scarabs getting the better end of these fights. Variety there takes a whole lot of damage stepping up to the wave. I suppose just kind of hedging his bets. Hey, I'll clear it before the Solar Scarabs can get here. I know they just slammed Twig like 20 feet away. And he does very narrowly make it out alive with that wave. So thin margins. Make sure Variety doesn't miss out on too much farm. It doesn't fall too far behind. The Solar Scarabs still really close in this game. The Camelot Kings signature, hey, we're behind in kills. We haven't been winning every fight, but we still have the lead playstyle. Doing numbers for him as of now. I want to see the Solar Scarabs keep up this pace, though. We're starting to approach that portion of the game where I feel like their composition, the Solar Scarabs that is, can really bring the fight.
This is something we've been seeing by quite a few teams now, is once this first Trebuchet gets in, they try and push everybody towards one of the lanes to deal with it. But this time around, the Kings will not stick to their Trebuchet. Instead, they'll rotate 4 over to drop the Greater Scorpion. Half HP on the objective, but that's not what the Camelot Kings are concerned about. It's the remaining farm on the map. These other objectives, while they're not Pyros and they're not Gold Furies, it's a large influx of gold and some boost to the rest of the map.
I mean, that's nearly 300 gold in their pocket just off the back of 2 Greater Scorpions. Do that consistently, and all of a sudden your lead is going to start to skyrocket there as well. The Camelot Kings have been no stranger and have no qualms sharing how much they value the Greater Scorpions, the Totems of Ku, the offerings on the map. They are willing to fight over it, and that is for the most part where they're able to establish their leads. Solar Scarabs grouping up significantly. Given space, I like this call. Pull the Pyro, force a fight.
Solar Scarabs will grab it. Just Screaming inbound here. Genetics should be able to slow this one down. A silence onto both will stop the advancement against the Pyromancer. Solar Scarabs will back away, and well, we'll back at least away from the objective and go towards the fight yet again. Variety under fire. World Weaver is there. We'll be waiting for Scream on landing. Gets the beads from him, but a circle of protection down. Draconic Transformation will hit Variety. Gets a nice heal, but Variety just has not enough defense to live through this. There's not enough CC in the world for Genetics to slow them down. 3 strong of the Scarabs take down the solo once again. But CaptainTwig on the way. Doesn't seem that he's going to want to jump into this lane.
Netrioid has made the rotation as well. The Solar Scarabs have no idea the ADC is here. They've walked into a trap.
3 versus 3, 2 in the Sanctified Field, and Scream is slowed to all hell and back. Netrioid finds one and finds a double kill, taking down Scary D. Great rotation from the Hunter of the Kings.
And you might as well take the Pyromancer while you're here. What are you concerned about? You think Stu and Oboronic can do the Gold Fury on their own? I'm not certain they've got the damage at this portion of the game. The Camelot Kings turn a bad situation into a great one, as they're so apt to do, of the Bobby to steal.
It's going to take a leap or a hammer, but that's silence from Genetics, lasting the entirety of that last 10 to 15% health of the Pyromancer. Means the Camelot Kings will grab 2 kills on that right side team fight and a Pyromancer. Our first somewhat significant gold lead and XP lead of the game, 2,500 XP, 2K gold up for the Kings.
Yeah, pretty substantial lead early on. Difference in Netrioid's build, I really thought it was just going to be rings all the way through. is going to be that Bancroft's in the second slot. We'll see when he upgrades it. Probably going to be a little while. Don't really get the benefits of that glyph upgrade until you've got a good amount of power stacked up to transform into attack speed. Genetics Ultimate coming up very shortly. Presence from the Camelot Kings on the left side of the map. Lead on the left side of the map as well. Gotta think the Solar Scarabs should be concerned about this Gold Fury going down, which is why we see Scream for the first time this game. 12.5 minutes in, rotate over.
Scary D, no beads, will get hit by the Neith. Variety locked out of this fight, but CaptainTwig is doing a good job of dealing the damage through. Turtle form in with the Ming. But Scary D will be able to make it out. Not quite enough DPS coming from the jungler just yet.
Yeah, needed the help of Variety to lock him down, but a great wall from Scary D will buy himself some time and his life in that trade. And look at all the presence we've seen from the Scarabs on the right-hand side. Doesn't seem like Variety's too concerned. 0-3, dead even.
Genetics, though, might fall. The stun just off the mark from the leap. Genetics drops circle protection, stays inside of it for a little while longer to try and get as much heal as he can, but it's not very much at all. Scream picks up the kill on the support. Inbound still has that dragon form, but not going to go for the Fury just yet. BigManTingz eats a nice 1-2 combo from oBoronic. But the chase is still on. CaptainTwig is in the midst of the fray, but that dueling dragons coming from the mid laner is enough to push CaptainTwig away.
Twig so low. We'll be able to resustain with the help of Netrioid's healing. But with Genetics dead for so long, even with this significant grouping, the Camelot Kings cannot look towards this objective. Variety makes the rotation on the off chance the fight goes well for them, and unfortunately it does not. Could not close that gap. Does at least take the beads off Stuart though, so Xbalanque going to have a target on his back. Pretty easy for CaptainTwig to initiate the fight there. But again, it's just strange pacing. The Solar Scarabs now shifting their attention back towards this right-hand side of the map. Thought it would have been continued presence from them around that Gold Fury. I suppose just waiting on some of those cooldowns. Draconic Transformation, Dueling Dragons, both still got a significant amount of time left on them. Those are the bulk of your team fight and objective burn. But given time and space, the Camelot Kings aren't going to let off. You caught Genetics on his rotation towards the gold. He's already back. Oracle's taken, and the Camelot Kings can bide their time and just wait for an opportunity to pull it out. Every single fight on an objective, weighted coin toss of the team with circle protection.
And they've been able to keep vision on that pit for quite some time too, between the oracles and then the wards that have been dropped down around there. And that's why for the first time I can't really say the first time we've seen Variety play really aggressive, but was able to walk between the tier 1 and tier 2 in soul lane because he saw 3 people on a ward on the left side. And he's probably in his mind, he's thinking, hey, I'm finally safe. The Gold Fury is not quite so. Drop down, quarter HP, Genetics will throw circle protection, but he pops it too early. Solar Scarabs get the Gold Fury, but can they get out of the team fight? Inbound, hit by the pin. The fire is good, but Sanctified Field is back. Stuart knocked up and knocked out of his dash. Genetics and Big Man find one. Scary D, nowhere for the Cabrakan to go. Locked between 3. BigManTingz will miss the root, but he'll get the style kill with the backflip.
Oboronic on the retreat, got CaptainTwig on his heels. Dueling Dragons doesn't push him away, but the damage might just be enough. Oboronic turns around 1, but Variety takes them down in trade. That's a 4-for-1 trade favoring the Camelot Kings. Gold Fury does go to the Scarabs, but you gotta think that the Kings, well, with 4, might just be on the fire. Scream no mana and no chance, has to head back to base. And that play is all off the back of Variety picking up the heroic teleport this early in the game. The Solar Scarabs are out, and then all of a sudden, I didn't even see him come in. Double stun from the King Arthur, and the Kings were just stuck to him from there.
Yeah, congrats on getting the objective, Solar Scarabs. Unfortunately, you lost everybody but Scream, and you lose out on the Fire Giant on the tail end, and now we see a 3,000 gold lead up for the Camelot Kings. Not super significant, but considering they just lost the gold, which was at least a 1K swing back the other way, means the Camelot Kings have firmly put themselves in the driver's seat now with all, well, 4 out of the 5 having that buff.
Yeah, you've got the important members, the people that are actually shredding the tower and the guys who are going to be tanking the tower. CaptainTwig can essentially just act as a solo agent in these fights, hovering around the jungle. Erlang Shen generally struggles on tower siege regardless, so you don't really want him in the bulk of the team fight, barring just that initial initiation. Blink, 9 turns blessing, get out, go split push. That's generally going to be CaptainTwig's MO in these exchanges. As of now, though, no Fire Giant to his name, still stepping up to the tower on his own. Only Inbound there to defend it, so will go down regardless. The Camelot Kings, plenty of gold on the map to collect, but still in precarious positions all the way across the map. On the left-hand side, Scream and Stuart setting up an ambush. Netrioid just not going to give it up, though. Will play behind his own tier 2 tower. I'm surprised the Camelot Kings haven't just grouped up. They've got the gold lead. They've got the experience lead. They've got relics to spare. And Fire Giant on 4. Maybe go push some of these towers, boys.
Seems Variety will start the push in right, and the rest of the Kings now following suit. Scary D not going to stand by and try and defend his Tier 1 tower. Not even sure if he'll stand by to defend Tier 2 at that. GenX has upgraded both of his relics completely now, so does have the Hasten Wings available to his team, so a lot of extra rundown, and will go for that Cloak of the Ascetic. So there's extra cooldowns from that meditation. And now when it comes down to that instance, I mean, the Solar Scarabs, you look across the board and they have one form of anti-heal. And Mifflin just feels like that meditation is going to get an extreme amount of value in this fight.
Yeah, meditation healing, I'm not certain enough on its own that you're really like, I don't know, like you're not like getting an Ankh, you're not overly itemizing towards that anti-heal. But with Netrioid healing, BigManTingz self-sustaining, CaptainTwig self-sustaining, Genetics team heal plus Cloak of the Ascetic, maybe just pick up an Ankh. With all that on top of each other, you're going to find some value in these team fights, and it's not as if those are single target heals. It's going to spread.
Oh, I was going to say, is Scream going to get soloed? Almost does. Who blocked that? Scary D blocked it in the jungle.
Legends.
That is so lucky for Scream that his teammate was there. CaptainTwig not so lucky, pushed in by the Dueling Dragons and taken down by Stuart. The Solar Scarabs find a pick. Variety will teleport out to join the rest of his team. He'll teleport to the mid lane to get away as the rest of his team pushes up the left lane.
Yeah, able to take down the Tier 1 and 2 on the left-hand side, steal away some of this jungle. Twig makes the rotation, just thinking that Scream would have been a free pick. Scary D, of course, finding that block in the jungle and then having the rest of the Solar Scarabs nearby does turn that around and make sure that CaptainTwig was not allowed to rotate freely. But regardless, at the end of the day, the Camelot Kings got what they came for. It may have been a roundabout path, but it was an incredibly early Fire Giant regardless. They've still been able to take out just about every single tower on the map and potentially could look for a little bit more. Variety on the hunt. You gotta let this go, right? Get out of there.
He wants that revenge kill, man. He said, we didn't get it last time. We gotta get it this time, but this time we'll have to wait. All towers barring the Tier 2 and solo have been taken. And a push towards the mid-Phoenix for the Kings. Genetics stunned out of his Wing Gust. And Camelot Kings with only 20 seconds left on Fire Giant. Not willing to push in towards the Phoenix any further. Instead, we'll take the last few seconds of their buff and go towards the Fury. But the Solar Scarabs hot on their heels as they're grouping up around it too.
The Camelot Kings have not spent all their gold just yet, but they do have enough damage to take out Scream, who just gets caught out on the rotation. And unfortunate, no CC immunity available to him, so that stun was just a death sentence. And now the Camelot Kings may have been going towards the Fury. Why do that? Might as well go towards the Phoenix.
CaptainTwig and Tings both eating some damage from Inbound and Oboronic there. But with the sustain that Netrioid has, should get them both up pretty close. Inbound transforms as soon as he lands Spear Ball just off the mark. The silence good and circle protection down. We'll be able to get nearly a full heal with the Sanctified Field. Does not seem the Solar Scarabs want to step into this one. The Phoenix should go down momentarily. Will do so. Scary D in the middle of 4 being ran down. A little bit of HP left. And it's Netrioid to get the killing blow, but Inbound is low.
Whoa.
And Oboronic is low. And just like that, we went from, okay, let's ignore the Phoenix to go to Fury, go back to Phoenix, and now the Camelot Kings knocking down the door of the Titan. We're not even 21 minutes into the game, and the Camelot Kings are going to take game number 1. Stuart low, Scream low, Titan even lower as it falls down to the might of the Camelot Kings.
The Kings are an opportunistic team. I do not think they start that Phoenix Siege with any inkling of intention to actually step into the Titan room. You pick up 3 kills and Scream just on the respawn. Maybe just go ahead and do it. All things considered, man, that was a wild pace to this match. We didn't even get to see the parabola. They didn't even get to the late game.
We're still at the dip down there.
Yeah, they were just better in the team fight, and that's off the back of the Solar Scarabs still finding like ideal ganks, catching out CaptainTwig, Variety falling twice in the early. Just didn't matter. The Camelot Kings, when they grouped up, simply did it better.
And your parabola kind of looked like a plateau for a while. I was like, all right, here we go, and we're just going to stay there. And then, oh, here we go. We have a mountain at the end of that plateau just shooting up.
Skill issue.
And with that one, the Camelot Kings take a decisive game number 1 over the Scarabs, at least in the latter half, because as you said, at the beginning of that game, it looked like the Solar Scarabs had pretty good control in that lane, keeping Variety down, keeping CaptainTwig down. But with it, Camelot Kings take game number 1. We'll take it to a break, and we'll come back for game number 2.
Halsey, and Halsey, don't you stop! Final King! I know! A Final King!
I gave up dabbing for Lynn.
Cool. No more dabbing for Final King. He looked at me and said, I'm going to be on that stage next year. I'm going to become a world champion. Ripping through! Titan down, ball 3! A double kill myself!
I'm trying to think if we've seen FineOK dab at all since that video was recorded. Absolutely, at least once.
How long
right?
is his lint?
Well, no, I don't know. I mean, is he? Maybe it's been
Well,
like
to
a
be fair,
lifelong
like
thing.
when you spend
Maybe.
3 years at
That's
home,
true, Gore. Yeah, I
you
know what
stop
you're
wanting to dab in general.
That's true. Well, look, we won't talk about dabbing very much because the Camelot Kings have taken game number 1 over the Solar Scarabs here. And again, the back and forth of this early game is what we expected. The Solar Scarabs had the ability to get aggressive early on. And again, the Camelot Kings score. They're just too clean of a team, and they're able to close out close early games like this
I mean,
eventually.
it was a bloodbath early on, right? I mean, everybody's getting kills, some really good starts, I think, for the Scarabs, but it came down again to kind of overall play where you're seeing a lot of these neutral objectives, things like that, and the Kings were just better. I mean, like they said it in the cast. They just approached team fights a little bit stronger. I think having that global presence kind of all around Tings being not only present enough to go for rotations like that, but being able to find some really key ultimates across the map, things like that, set up fights for their team. You get the Sanctified Fields all of a sudden involved in that one. I think every single part of it from top to bottom just felt like it ended up working out well for them in the team fights. And again, like looking at the kills, a lot of things are really even. But look at the goal, right? I mean, 20 minutes in, 8 kills to 9, but it's 6,000 gold separating these two teams. And that's really what I think the Scarabs are, and really a lot of teams are having to deal with up against the Kings right now, is not just their capability. Like mechanically, they're phenomenal, right? The Kings are just playing really damn well. They're really good at SMITE. That one's an easy statement to make. But they're individual mechanical play, then their team mechanical play is all phenomenal. So team fight wise, you know that they're going to be able to come into it and barely make any mistakes. And then if their farm is going to be that much stronger, there's like a lot of facets, pretty much everything you can think that it is going to be necessary to win a competitive game of SMITE. They have right now just figured it out really, really well.
Right.
And it's so difficult, I think, for a lot of people in the league. You know, you might be really great at farming, but maybe your team fight's not as strong. Or maybe, like we saw yesterday with the Leviathans. Team fight is really good for the Levi's, but the Kings still were just able to do it a little more often, a little cleaner overall. And I think that's what unfortunately falls apart here for the Scarabs.
And again, this style of composition for the Kings is nothing new. This is now the 4th game they've won with a Neith style of comp in 4 attempts with a Neith style of composition. This is just this phase. Because remember, last year, before the entire Kings team was here, this is the style of comp they would play. They're like, look, you don't need inch perfect, second perfect ping to send a World Weaver out and connect on it with somebody, and so those are the types of things that this team has talked specifically about BigManTingz and him having to be in EU and on ping for some of their matches, and that like takes some god pools off, or some gods off the table, ping heavy gods. If BigManTingz is able to fall back onto stuff like this and continue playing like one of the best mid laners in the league, which he has been for the past 3 or so seasons, the Kings just got the meta and the game figured out right now, playing like the best team in the league. And again, look unstoppable here in game 1. And unfortunately, Gore, I think what's difficult is because even if the Scarabs, if you ban out the Neith, it's not like the Kings are short on team comps, I mean, you pivot into something else. I think it really might just take a team playing their own game better than what the Camelot Kings are doing. The Scarabs need to draft some early game scrappiness and build that up into a lead, and they've just got to do that better than the Kings, because beating the Kings at their own game is not a task that, well, anyone outside the Leviathans have been up to so far this phase.
And even then, we saw what happened to them the second time around, right? The Kings, they didn't give them as easy as an opening. I will say, I think the Levi's still looked pretty decent against them yesterday. Unfortunate for them that they fall 2-0, but you look at this Kings team right now, and it's a lot of things, right? And this is not even anything against the Scarabs. It's really just that the Kings, separate from the Scarabs, separate from the league, are farming really well. Like you said, they're playing their comps really well. They've got a variety of comps and variety of the player who is incredibly good.
No set. We can't go one set. And I'm not saying that in a disappointed way. I'm saying, like, I think we're obligated at least once a set.
If the word variety comes up, you have to mention the player as well.
Variety.
But on top of that, I think the other thing that has really kind of escalated things forward for them, and this is something that I want to listen back into, like, their comms. I want to see what it's like, because, like, in days of old, a lot of the teams that had success, I'm thinking of your NRG prior to that, Epsilon, when they were the same squad, winning 2 back-to-back. You go look at your enemies in North America back then. You had Raffer and Pain to Beyond as, like, the shot callers, and then you just had 4 really good mechanical players that listened, right? And it was one of those things they always said, we live by the idea that you listen to the call, whether it's a good call or a bad call, everybody goes with it, and that's how it works. And they won a lot of SMITE because of that, and I'm pretty sure, I'm not entirely sure, but it feels like the Kings kind of function in a very similar way, right? Maybe a little bit more vocal, I think, across the board, but really good shot calling with really good mechanical players that are really active on the map and just are going to listen to the call.
Yep.
And because of how well the shot calling, how well the direction goes for them, it opens up, I think, so much more of the map that, unfortunately, for a lot of these teams, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, and I don't know where you can go if you're the Solar Scarabs. As far as bans go, take away the Chernobog, Yamoja, very strong, very good bans. But, like, you're thinking long and hard about what your third ban is here. Like, what can the one ban be that really changes up the Kings and what they want to do? What is the highest impact ban? I mean, you ban the Neith, and BigManTingz is just gonna play the Kukulkan or something like that. Play a different style of knockdown mid laner. You ban the Erlang Shen from CaptainTwig, and he's just gonna run it at you with a Hun Batz or something else. So you ban the Neith. And to be fair, I do think that may have been the answer. To be fair, I think that may have been the answer, because that is like a Neith comp, right? Now you can't make the Neith comp.
Be the judge.
You could do something different if you're BigManTingz, but the style of comp, the Kings won't be able to run back now with that one.
And it's so difficult too, because you ask, like, what do you ban, and I'm like, well, what can you leave open, right? It was the other option to me, and, like, what have they lost on that they're most likely to maybe lose on? And then it's like, well, Ymir, but when you've lost 3 games on Ymir but won 5, it doesn't feel that great to go up against it. Like, anything that has the 100% loss rate, like their new WA, they played 1 game, they lost 1 game with a new WA, right? And so, like, the things this phase that have affected the King in a negative light are not being picked up so often that it's blatantly obvious. It's like, this is what we can try to play around and maybe force them into. And so you really do just have to learn how to deal with, I think, the fact that they are going to play a lot of these comps incredibly clean. And, like, I was curious. I'm actually surprised to see them go for the Olorun over the Osiris, considering that was something that was manned out and prioritized by the Scarabs last game. Last game. I was curious as to whether or not they would want to lock it in. But, I mean, even foregoing that and still getting what I think is an amazing top 3 for the Kings is good news for them.
Right, now you've got an AMC Olorun comp, right? It's not an ETH comp, but you've got a Sanctified Field Stinger comp paired with one another. Luckily for the Scarabs, you're able to take away the Nemesis with your second pick, because Stinger plus Ultimate from them has proven way too difficult to deal with too many times. Now, there is good tankiness for the Solar Scarabs. You got the Osiris, yes, that's going to build up the mitigations and the tankiness later on in the game. And then Ymir, of course, always going to have a baseline of tankiness just as a Guardian. It's can this Ymir survive being punished by the Camelot Kings, early enough? If Inbound falls to 0-3 early in this game, whatever it may be, which is not unheard of for a Ymir.
Not at all.
The tankiness never really arrives. So those are the types of things you have to look at here if you're the Scarabs. Now you're going to take some shots at CaptainTwig. Erlang Shen was still up, but so is the Vamana, which has been very popular. Twig will have to look for something just a bit different. So while Erlang Shen and Vamana have been his options, so have Osiris and the Nemesis, unfortunately for Twig. Those won't be available either. And then Hun Batz has been his fallback when the 4 gods we just listed aren't an option. Hun Batz styles of picks have been there for Twig. And on the flip side, Oboronic is going to eat some bans here from the Camelot Kings.
And honestly, I think that's a good spot to put him, right? I think that you showcased last time that Stuart, in even in the right positions, is someone that you can handle, I think, a little bit better. And so you go for where their other drafts have found their strength. And when I see an Osiris, I see the Nemesis, I see a Ymir, I'm seeing a lot of potential to put pressure overall on the right-hand side of the map and in the mid lane specifically. And so it opened to me as, okay, let's stop oBoronic as best we can and try to control where their pressure and where their power is going to be. So I like the bans from the Kings. I think even more I like that the Chiron pick from the Scarabs, because we've seen it find a lot of success kind of across teams, but admittedly a lot for the Kings. And I think getting rid of that kind of acts as a temporary extra ban for you in terms of making Netrioid go somewhere else. Although last time, with everything they've already got locked in, yeah, it's not like you're changing too much. It's the matchup. Like, what can you do? You know, if you're going into mid, you know, if you rotate over, cool, you can escape the AMC a little bit. But when you're just boxing the Olorun, you've got the range on him, you've got slows on him. But if that ult is available and, you know, you're keeping matched track in terms of level and experience, you got to be a little worried about the Olorun.
I sense a battle approaching.
Bellona. Now, if this were the Titans, this would be destined for the duo lane.
It is not
But
wise to
has
put
been
baskets on
solo
your
lane
head,
Bellona
as you
for the
will
Kings in the
be
past.
eaten
And it does end up
after
being the Hunbats. 100% win rate on the Hunbats as well. At least one of those games for CaptainTwig. Again, it's not often that Twig isn't able to get one of Osiris, Nemesis, Erlang, Shen, Vamana, but as we mentioned, in the time or two that's happened, Hunbats has been an option. And it's how this draft finalizes. And again, what a way to finish off the draft. I mean, Fear No Evil, it's a very, you know, it's execution heavy, yes, and so you throw it out. If you're able to hit a good one, then it's totally cheap, teamfight changing. But you've still got the Sanctified Field,
Yeah.
and the AMC for some shred, and the Eagles Rally. Feels like a good team fight style of comp that the Kings have drafted.
Oh, and I said it yesterday, and I still, you know, stand by this, that I think Hunbats is like the exact way I would describe Twig's playstyle. Because, like, I feel like the way Hunbats scales through the game and the way that you see people typically interact with them is the way Twig would want to play. Where is he gonna, like, can he absolutely carry a game on his own? Yes. Can he go out and find solo kills and take you down if he needs to? Absolutely. But can he facilitate the team and let the glory go somewhere else? Exactly, right? He's going to be able to do all of it. And so it gives him that versatility, I think, out of the jungle. The only downside is that it takes a little bit of farming. But again, that matches the playstyle of the Kings. You spend a little bit of time in the jungle just farming, not necessarily looking for some crazy early first bloods or anything like that. And then you hit level 5, and that's where your impact can really begin. And so I think that when you're looking at this team for the Kings, very similar to last time, I think that once they all hit that level 5, so let's say like 6 minutes in, 5 minutes in, maybe a little later, you're across the board all hitting a massive power spike. But I think that in the places you need it most, you've got that pressure where Bellona is going to be able to keep up well enough with the Osiris. Khepri is going to help out the Olorun, and while they might not necessarily overpower a Chiron Ymir, they're not going to fall down to a Chiron Ymir without some external forces. I think the biggest thing to worry about here for the Kings is going to be Scream's early jungle as the Nemesis being able to get a little more hands-on than what we might see out of the Hunbats.
Do you think the Kings are at all worried about the Scarabs' initiation later on in the game, though? Because to me, it looks like you got a wall and a freeze from Inbowned, and then you're hoping that slows from Osiris and Nem and Lord of the Afterlife can dive into the team. And on the flip side, you're looking at a Sanctified Field, a Fear No Evil, an Eagles Rally, Khepri Roots and Plucks and things like that, and then an AMC, he's got his slows. Do you think the Scarabs should be worried about the initiation they've got on their team, or can they make it work?
I actually think that the Scarabs need to be worried about their own initiation,
right,
like you said, because like I think that jumping into the Kings feels like it's going to be a bad idea. And a lot of it, you know, is specifically even more looking at Ymir. You mentioned the walls, but usually the wall is only going to find one person that it separates. You look at Nemesis ult, only finds one person. Khepri loves compositions like that because he can just say, cool, you're choosing the one guy to die. I can just say don't to that one dude, and he gets to come back. AMC is going to be the easiest one to gank, so they at least have a target, but I don't know how easily he'll fall.
See if the Camelot Kings can keep their hot streak going. Game 2 between the Kings and the Scarabs. Kick it off.
And Gorge, J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug coming back at you for game number 2 between the Camelot Kings and the Solar Scarabs. A 21-minute game number 1 for the Camelot Kings. to close things out early on in the game. And now, coming back in, maybe a little bit of a slower comp from them, though the Camelot Kings, as you say, a very opportunistic team, didn't think that they were going to be ending the game as early as they did, but able to make those turnaround plays. And Miv, I'll be honest, I'm a little scared as a Scarabs fan because I look across and I see BigManTingz on AMC, and this is a god that he has popped off on consistently throughout this phase. If I'm a Scarabs fan, how are you going to alleviate me from being so scared of that pick?
Well, you've got really good early game jungle presence. Scream on this Nemesis could likely get involved in the mid lane. Then again, the Solar Scarabs MO is really just playing around that solo, so could be an opportunity that just goes by the wayside. The concern point for the Camelot Kings, and I suppose the alleviation for Solar Scarabs and their fans, is the fact that Inbound is playing Ymir. That wall is going to be so disruptive for the Camelot Kings. Really only CaptainTwig has got the, I suppose, consistent way to make it over that wall. Otherwise, Variety with the ultimate, sure, and then everybody else is just stuck. So Netrioid in particular, BigManTingz in particular, going to be very susceptible to the initiation of the Solar Scarabs. If you're pitting someone against a wall in a jungle fight, you can't ask for much better follow-up than oBoronic on this Merlin. The Arcane stance, the Fire stance, both very good in those situations. Your chase down potential pretty high, but the devs already talked about the counter initiation from the Camelot Kings. Sure, you got a whole lot of slows. You could stick to them, but do you want to stick to them with your time dilated or while you're getting feared away by CaptainTwig? It's an interesting dynamic in this match. I'm keeping my eyes on these first 10 minutes. I feel like that is going to be very indicative of the rest of the game.
You see Scream keeping up his early pressure in solo, as he's aptly to do so. Did it pretty much all of game number 1, trying to keep Variety at bay, and they did so in the early stage. First 10 or so minutes, Variety really did not get much freedom in his lane, but we haven't seen that pressure put towards him just yet, mostly just to clear out both of the Serpent camps on that right side of the map. So Scream will get a little bit of an extra XP boost in that regard, but because he spent so much time just sitting in those couple of solo lane camps, CaptainTwig has already been able to pull over a slight experience lead.
I think Inbound almost just died. If that root connected from Genetics, that was a fully channeled 2 from Netrioid, who's gone towards Mannequins again. Yeah, all right. You know, second burst, same as the first.
One more
almost
hit.
Dies again. Bobby is just, he is playing with wild abandon. I cannot believe that he was still there. Luckily makes it out.
Gary D, now it's a 2v2. The emblem goes out, and a blink over the wall by Scream to try and get CaptainTwig. Variety and Twig will be just fine. Even Scream now losing out on that blink. Scary D's tethered to Variety, and that should maybe be a turnaround kill. BigManTingz though is rotating over. It's going to make it a 3 versus 2. Variety will not be the first one to go down just yet. He's still boxing back,
joking?
but will finally fall down. Scream gets first blood for the Solar Scarabs, but can Scary D, can Scream make it out in the new 2v2 that has developed? A slow onto CaptainTwig. The damage, the mitigation of Scary D, the stun is good. Scream picks up the double kill, could very well be a triple. Good body blocks by Scream, a dash in. Scary D takes the third, and 3 on the board for the Scarabs early.
Hold on, might be 4. Boronic's completely owned, so might as well disengage. The Solar Scarabs playing properly around their Osiris. Don't fight that guy this early in the game. Tether is a whole lot of damage mitigation, even at rank 1. Death Toll gonna resustain you a good bit. Variety walks into that fight at like 1/4 HP maybe. Doesn't even get the opportunity to steal away that blue buff. His best steal option is Scourge, and well, he didn't have that available as he was forced to use it for Peel a little bit earlier in the engagement. So Bludgeon being such a telegraphed burst of damage means that Scream very easily outconfirms him with that slice and dice. And from there, Scary D goes rampant. Just does so much damage.
Found 2 different tethers throughout that fight in order to find 2 different kills amidst that fight for his team. And now Scary D will have a nice little power spike coming into lane already with a sovereignty online. So full damage reduction, I should say. At least with those defenses online up against the double physical composition. So it's real easy for Scary D to build up against his opponents.
I mean, just look at this. He's no longer taking damage from the wave. Variety is not a threat. And when Scary D does fall back, it's just so he can resustain his HP and mana. It's going to take a pretty significant effort from the Camelot Kings to dig Variety out of this hole if they so choose. Wouldn't be surprised if we see what the desk was I suppose, hypothesizing about the early game pacing from the Camelot Kings. Just put them in the jungle. Just have CaptainTwig farming up. Just have BigManTingz hover in lane. this lane might just be a lost cause. Best case scenario, Variety steals this.
And will not. That one goes over to Scary D. So once again, without a blue buff is the solo laner for the Camelot Kings. And well, it might be some time before he's able to get a blue buff. And it might be some time before CaptainTwig gets farm inside of his own jungle. That's why we're seeing a rotation for him over towards the duo lane. Maybe to put some pressure on the opposite side of the map. Recognizing that, well, Variety might be a lost cause for at least the next 5 or 6 levels of the game. To try and put some of that pressure elsewhere on the map. Still in beta of this purple buff. Inbound tries to steal it away or secure it for himself, but does not end up doing so.
Yeah, I think Inbound just in a position there where if he gets abducted, he just dies again. This Ymir is incredibly volatile, and that's always been the conversation around Ymir is if you catch him out early, he's immobile and he's very easy to shut down. Abduct into Sanctified Field would have been a death sentence, and he very narrowly avoids that, realizing he's just like a couple of units out of range from Genetics' initiation. So I like the idea. Hey, maybe I try and steal away this purple buff. Worst case scenario, Stu can rotate in from behind, but risky play. And I don't think you need to make risky plays right now on the Solar Scarabs. You've got such a commanding lead over in the Soul lane. I think the only way the Solar Scarabs bungle the early is if they really start falling down elsewhere on the map. So Stuart using Centaurus to clear the wave, fine. Don't fight here. Go play around your lead, and that's where Scary D is.
Scary D is definitely at a nice lead right now because Variety still hasn't had the opportunity to go back and even finish up his first item just yet. Meanwhile, by the time Scary D goes back, he'll be able to pick up essentially a tier 2 and be a full item ahead almost. Inbound finds CaptainTwig in the jungle. Wall is good. Freeze off the mark. Oboronic goes in aggressively with the flicker. Fire stance transformation in. CaptainTwig slowed down, and there might not be an escape for him as Fear No Evil is gone. And Scream picks up his 3rd kill of the game, an early killing spree for the jungler of the Scarabs.
Solar Scarabs play on the right side of the map, and it's just the right play. Keep it up. That's exactly what you need to do to maintain this lead. We're about 3 minutes out from the Pyromancer spawning. We're about 3 minutes out from the Pyromancer getting pulled by the Solar Scarabs at this pace. The Camelot Kings can at least rest on their laurels and realize, hey, Netrioid's doing well. He's a late game hyper carry. Our composition's going to be really good in the 5-on-5 engagement. The Camelot Kings' entire discussion needs to be, how do we stem the bleeding? How do we slow this match down? Control your own jungle. Maybe have to give up that blue buff pretty consistently. As of now, though, no rotation for Solar Scarabs. Twig may have been able to work his way towards it, but it's already down. Excuse me. The Camelot Kings just need to tread water as of now. Don't go for any risky plays. And eventually, in the 5-on-5, that's where you're going to make your money.
Some pressure towards Scary D. By that, I mean a couple of abilities thrown at Scary D, who will return all of that right back to Variety. Scream rotates in. CaptainTwig has the leap, used it to get away, but slowed down not only by the sickle, but by the horrific emblem as well. Good damage return to Scary D. That's going to force the Lord of the Afterlife out. And that's a big win for the Camelot Kings. They get the relic and they get the ult.
Oboronic makes the rotation just to confirm that blue buff for the Solar Scarabs, and a good rotation at that with Scary D forced to play so defensively. Variety tries his best to be annoying, unsuccessful this time around. Anything you could do to slow down that farm, gonna be nice for you.
Inbound, pulled back by the abduct from the Fear No Evil. Great body blocks, but an even better wall by Inbound. CaptainTwig, juke out one more shot, will do so. And Inbound gets out, CaptainTwig gets out, and no blood shed in the mid-battle.
Inbound your way in on the Camelot Kings. If Genetics is there and you can lock them down, you got the Fear No Evil, that's how you find your fight. That's where you're going to find your re-established equilibrium. So the Camelot Kings, in putting so much threat onto Inbound, correct to do so, but expensive, cost them both the Stinger and the Fear No Evil. And well, Genetics has got death immunity, but how much help is that?
Genetics is getting pushed around by this Merlin. The Scarab's Blessing will proc. Sanctified Field here for Netrioid. Genetics going to try and use it for as long as he can. Stuart does not have that Centaurus. Used it on I don't know what exactly.
It was the wave.
And won't have it for the follow-up kill after. So unfortunate timing by Stuart to not be able to try and pick up that kill.
Yeah, I think Stuart's just hedging his bets like, hey, we're not fighting here, right? Like, it's like Scary D's going crazy, Scream's going crazy. I'm just going to keep ulting the wave. Netrioid's been bullying me the entire set. And that's unfortunately going to cost them pretty significantly. Would have been a great pick onto Genetics for the Solar Scarabs. Would have been one to at least get Stuart back to parity in the lane. Netrioid sitting at 10. Stuart just recently ticking over to level 9 and can't even do his purple buff on his own. Netrioid is just a bully.
Root just off the mark from Stuart. Scream is here. Double slice and dice is good. Still no ultimate available to either of the hunters. Netrioid standing inside the wave, but that's the worst place that you could stand with a Golden Blade Nemesis right at your throat. A 5th kill for the Solar Scarabs. The Camelot Kings, though, still holding on, still trying to find something somewhere that maybe they can grab oBoronic with a stinger, the Fear No Evil, and the overhead smash to close out the kill.
Genetics still here, as is Inbound, surrounded by 3. This one's not over just yet.
Well, the wall from Inbound cancels it immediately because he put up in front of his feet, but there was no further follow-up from the Camelot Kings. They grabbed their first kill of the game. This went on towards the mid laner. With Scream standing by and the red buff down, not much more the Kings can grab from this.
You know, Scream at 4-0-1, 100% kill participation. Not so significantly ahead of CaptainTwig. Just does tick over to level 11. Twig not too far off of 10. Real difference is that Scream's able to pick up a pretty expensive item. The way to close that gap might just be this. Scary D doesn't seem like he knows. Nobody knows on the Solar Scares. And the Camelot Kings just keep getting away with it. This neutral objective play keeps them afloat.
Ultimate from Scream. Scary D is here as well as Inbound. Beads are gone from BMT. The wall is to the hold them in. A dunk in by Scary D, but a revive onto BigManTingz. That will only delay his health for a little while longer. Scream picks up his 5th kill of the game. Scary D grabs one of his own to make it 2 for him. And Variety on the run under the tower. No further chase. 2 more kills for the Scarabs, but a Pyromancer to the Kings.
I think that wall might be maxed out already. That lasted just about forever. From Inbound, no, one off. Yeah, he has gone for it first.
Starting it.
Rightfully so. I mean, we talked about it. Wall decimates this King's draft. You don't really need your freeze to last all that long if they're stuck regardless. And clearly it's already paid for itself. That play on its own can justify that level order. Inbound making his mark known. He's been playing on the knife's edge for the last 11.5 minutes. Still 0-0, still able to get involved.
I just thought of something really disgusting with this wall, too. So Sanctified Field slows down everything that's essentially not CC immune inside of it.
No shot, it's dilating the wall.
I'm pretty sure it dilates the wall. That would be like a 12-second wall that could stay up if he pops that for its perfect duration. That is something gross I don't want to keep thinking about, so let's talk about the fight that has already stopped. Never mind, we'll go back to thinking about the wall.
You can't make me. I won't do it. I'm not gonna.
Okay.
They're gonna have to prove to me that that's how that works. No way. That's how that works.
Pretty sure it does. I mean, all auto attacks are slowed within and all movement speed. If you're knocked up in the air, you stay there for a lot longer.
But structures are CC immune, surely.
Well, for now, Gold Fury started by the Solar Scarabs. Genetics is here. Netrioid's got ultimate, but Inbound does too. And the Gold Fury will go over to the Solar Scarabs, who've been able to push themselves up to now about a 3,000 gold lead. And a lot of this off the back of this early aggression from Scream. A nice look to the Sanctified Field.
Wow, that first sentence made me go cross-eyed.
Brings forth Olorun and Olofi, who travel outwards, creating a large area of divine energy that distorts the flow. That is, you could write that as just like the opening for a book, and I'm reading it.
I feel like I just read Purgatorio by Dante, man. Like, what is going on? So for in layman's terms, the big field slowdown time.
It slows down just about everything inside there, unless you're CC immune, which Variety is not right now. He's got to fight against 2, but Variety's got some backup. He'll go in up against Scream, but not much further follow-up. BigManTingz and the rest of the crew are just trying to get away from Scary D, who's nearly 3 items deep in his build and feels nigh unkillable at this point. Solar Scarabs will go back in. The wall will close off BigManTingz and take down his life bar. Scream with his 6th one of the match.
Yeah, it's going to be a little while until the Camelot Kings can pick up a Phantom Shell. Genetics still sitting at level 10, still the recipient of aggression. CaptainTwig can't be happy about that one. I believe actually secured the speed buff. Sacred Monkey finding some value. The wall a little too late from Inbound. I'm willing to let that one be bygones for this one. Getting a kill on BigManTingz earlier, you're allowed to fumble.
All good for now. Solar Scarabs, though, grouped up as 3 versus 3. Sanctified Field is out by Netrioid. Freeze from Inbound will separate something, but Scream doesn't have any further backup. Finally, a shutdown kill to the Kings, and it goes over to Netrioid, one of the best players that you could have it for right now. And Inbound just on his pathway out will make it to the Tier 1 tower, and the Camelot Kings get their second kill of the fight and a significant one to find in this match.
Doesn't it feel like this lead should be bigger?
It should.
Doesn't
does.
it feel like that? Like we are barely separated in gold considering the 8-2 slash line. 14.5 minutes in. It's just the Camelot Kings splitting their farm very, very efficiently. Tale of two games. Left side of the map belongs to the Kings still. Netrioid has just been dominant up against Stu. This is the first time I've looked at the bottom of the screen and saw parity in the level department. Otherwise, 2-level deficit both ways in solo and jungle, favoring the Solar Scarabs. Fights on the left side of the map won't be so heavily favored for the Scarabs. They need to remember that. Sure, you've got decent matchup. The wall from Inbound, very disruptive for just about everybody. Wait, is no shot.
Lane swap. Variety went to go get some farm.
Netrioid's going
Maybe
back.
to find a kill on a Stuart. Does catch the ultimate.
This won't work.
Pops the horrific.
It
Cleanse
can.
from Stuart. We'll get him out. Down to about a quarter HP. Doug, if we get a look at the net worth chart just to see where like the gold significant lead is in the jungle, 9,200 versus 75. So that's 1,700 of that gold.
We'll call it 2K.
Is in favor of Scream. Solo lane 88 to 79, so 1,000. That's all the gold lead of the Scarabs and maybe a little bit extra. CaptainTwig gets stunned out before he can jump over the wall, and Scary D picks up another kill.
They are not.
Fire Giant.
Return 15-minute Fire Giants?
Of the Solar Scarabs. Last time, it was the Kings knocking at the Fire Giant's door this early. This time, it's the Solar Scarabs knocking down Variety, stuck inside the wall, nowhere to go. Absolutely disgusting placement of these walls all game long by Inbound. And the Scarabs are just going to pick off the Kings one by one as they conveyor belt to the objective.
Genetics has to play safe here. That's a tight corridor. Inbound decides to keep him back. Fire Giant will be secured by the shards of ice. The Solar Scarabs can continue their onslaught. Genetics caught out. Luckily, Netrioid there.
Sanctified Field slows down Scream, but there's no further follow-up. The orbs fly through and get some good damage. But Scary D will make sure that Netrioid and Genetics have to stay back. All 5 of the Scarabs with Fire Giant and a Pyromancer around their waist. But again, Mifflin, it just feels like with how dominant the Scarabs are, that this 4K lead they have should be like 8K by now.
Yeah, give it about 2 minutes.
Okay.
I think we're going to get to exactly
I'll
that
start
point.
my timer real quick.
All right, well, maybe call it 3 minutes.
Okay.
Let's just call it the Fire Giant
I'll dial it
power
back a
play.
little bit.
Solar Scarabs have got plenty of towers on the map to collect some gold from Primal Fury. Also respawning very shortly. Might see them go ahead, take out both tier 1s, then fall back to the Fury. But the Camelot Kings, generating pressure on the map, might be able to control the rotation path of the Solar Scarabs. They're sticking around, just Scream and Scary D on the defense, and I know I said just, but they're both incredibly high level. Might be enough on their own to dissuade the Camelot Kings from sticking around. But even in just showing up, they've essentially taken away 20 seconds of this power play.
Ultimate at a Scream onto Variety. But all the Camelot Kings will be out. They just came for the tier 1, wanted the tier 2, but got pushed back as there is a 6-level difference
might be in trouble
between solo and jungle. Scary D drops the tether onto CaptainTwig. CaptainTwig goes back in and gets the Lord of the Afterlife. Maybe a bit of a panic ult by Scary D to try and get out. Meanwhile, the rest of the Scarabs will inbound now, rotating to the right. The 2 carries of the Scarabs heading over to the left tier 2 tower. They'll tell you with no contest whatsoever.
Genetics chased out. Scream thinks better of it. Tier 1 and 2 will go down, favoring the Solar Scarabs on that left side of the map. Stuart and Oboronic able to do it on their own. Fall back, pick up the Primal, head towards mid, or even potentially head back to base and spend the gold. You still have plenty of time left on this power play and plenty of gold in pocket for some of the members of the Solar Scarabs. Instead, they're going to go for the riskier play. You see a couple of members of the Camelot Kings show presence on the left-hand side. You realize they're not here to defend. Take that one for yourself as well. Haven't seen a true siege just yet, and I think we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for it. Solar Scarabs, they're crossing their T's, they're dotting their I's, and making sure they do get to that pretty significant gold lead. Creeping up on that 3-minute mark, also creeping up on AK.
Yep, Primal Fury goes down. Only 2 towers left.
And we're there.
For the Solar Scarabs to knock down. And it's 7K, not quite to the 8, but close enough at this point.
We'll call it 8.
We'll call it. I mean, once they get this tier 2 in mid or the tier 2 in right,
we'll call it 8.
It will be there soon enough. BigManTingz probably the furthest along as far as the builds are concerned for these players. I mean, we go back and look over at the solo and jungle deficit, and it is pretty significant at this point in the game. I mean, being 3 levels down at 19 minutes in both of those roles is not a great position for the Camelot Kings. So, if you're the Kings, Do you just hunker down and maybe try and go for a Fire Giant defense on the next spawn? Do you wait until they make their reinitiations and try and siege again to make your defense? I mean, for the Kings, where do they draw the line in the sand in this game?
I'm thinking these next couple of items from the Camelot Kings are going to be very significant power spikes, finish up Twigs, Heartseeker, maybe a Titan's Bane from BigManTingz, and then all of a sudden your damage output is incredibly high. The real question mark is with the Camelot Kings this far behind, who can burn beads consistently? If a beads gets burnt, CaptainTwig's going to find value if Fear No Evil. You're at least able to kill one guy regardless. That's what this draft is very good at for the Camelot Kings. But who's doing it? Are you sending Variety with the Eagles Rally? Is that enough threat? I'm not certain it is. Can Genetics abduct in these situations? He's level 14 and not exactly tanky with only 2 items to his name.
Are the Kings?
Get some global gold? That's not so bad.
Are the Kings going to stick around? No, they will not. Everybody's going to go ahead and go back. So Tier 1 and Tier 2 in duo lane goes down to the Camelot Kings. Tier 2 in mid goes to the Solar Scarabs, and a teleport from Variety will scare the only 2 on the right side who were there away from that tower. So the Camelot Kings at least holding out. They're not going to let this 7K get any larger, at least for now. It's 1 tower to 2, still sitting 7K. The Solar Scarabs should have at least a decent position, some decent gold coverage to get themselves up for this Fire Giant. It's all going to be, in my mind, got to come down to a good Sanctified Field from Netrioid, maybe for the Camelot Kings to find a pick. But as we discussed with Inbound and his walls this entire game, that could be the deciding point for the Solar Scarabs to close it out.
Well, we got a Phantom Shell finally on the side of the Camelot Kings, and 2 shells yet to be upgraded will likely also be Phantom Shells. Make it a little bit more difficult for Inbound to find value from these walls. Maybe you overstep in some of these situations thinking that the wall is real good, you're able to turn it around with that ability to walk through them. Or maybe you just keep up your pressure on the opposite side of the map. Seems the Camelot King's not interested in defending the Fire Giant. Actually, very intelligent play. Let the minion wave clear out. The Solar Scarabs, I think they've got no idea they're here.
Doesn't seem so. It's only going to be Netrioid and Genetics. Scream finds BigManTingz in the jungle. Will shut down the B.
Got it.
But the left side Phoenix going down rather fast. The fact that there's only 3 items on this Olorun. Scream, Scary D are here. No wall to block them off.
Yep.
Left Phoenix goes down to the Camelot Kings.
This could be a
but
bait.
Can Genetics and Netrioid find their way out? Fire Giant, meanwhile, on the other side, will go to the Solar Scarabs. Scary D walks in as the tether. CaptainTwig missed the Sacred Monkey Toss, but an ultimate in by Scary D. Gets the jump out by CaptainTwig. And now, how will the Camelot Kings respond? Just seems to be run as fast as we can to get out of this fight.
Should be able to resustain. Solar Scarabs can't overcommit, especially with Variety hovering nearby. They're just trying to stop these backs from the Kings and buy time so that they can push down on this right-hand side. Tier 2 top falls, and it's just Variety on the defense.
Variety should be able to find a disarm on a Stuart or oBoronic to try and slow it down. Does get the Scorch out there, but gets frozen in place. No beads available. Eagles rally in because CaptainTwig has shown up. Stuart pushed against the wall. Does get the giddy up to find his way out. The Solar Scarabs did get the Tier 2 on right, and it started their push on the bird on that same side.
The Camelot Kings have enhanced minion waves working their way down the left-hand side of the map. The Solar Scarabs might be on the siege. They might have the power to do it, but is the map state going to favor them? Seems the answer is no. The Solar Scarabs would like to push the left lane regardless, just the most valuable Phoenix on the map for subsequent Fire Giant plays. But considering how the map was, would have loved to have seen them continue their siege there. The longer this goes, the closer those enhanced minion waves get to the base of the Solar Scarabs.
Scream holds on to 1. Netrioid getting hit by the Centaurus shots. The wall comes out from Inbound, and a Sanctified Field will not save Netrioid's life. 2 versus 5. Genetics can't get past the wall. Variety can barely get back to the Phoenix. He'll Eagles rally out. Genetics revives himself and will just make it out. No, he won't. Masterful shot up for Stuart. Takes down Genetics. And the minions now into the throne room on the top side. The Solar Scarabs will grab the Phoenix, but will they go for more? To the mid lane they go.
Can they siege the mid lane? They're still 3 strong. BigManTingz has Stinger. Base already being looked at by these minions. The Solar Scarabs will continue their siege. It's going to be slow rolling.
CaptainTwig, ultimate is up. BigManTingz, ultimate up. CaptainTwig throws the monkey to the back line, doesn't get a whole lot of damage just yet. The Phoenix is slowly burning and the wall will keep out Variety. So 2 Phoenixes gone now on the side of the Camelot Kings. So the Solar Scarabs, they've got to get back and start defending this base. The minions didn't do a whole ton of damage, and maybe that's thanks to the fact that there's still 2 towers up on that side of the map.
Yeah, pretty stacked up minion wave. Will start to poke some damage in towards that Titan. Not unfeasible for a backdoor attempt from the Camelot Kings. If the Solar Scarabs decide to group up and start sieging properly, the base will be pretty healthy. It would take a pretty significant amount of damage from the minions here to leave this in a state where the Camelot Kings. Okay, guys, go clear.
What are you
go
doing?
Clear the look. The more this gets poked, you're actually given a win condition
What
to the
are
Camelot
they
Kings.
doing?
They're buying items, man. Clear that first. That Titan actually took
half its health.
A whole lot of If they get backdoored, mark my words, 24 minutes, 45 seconds of the game, the Solar Scarabs through. It's unrealistic. It's long shot odds. The left side Phoenix is respawning shortly. But that is a lot of damage on the Titan. You got to think the Kings are thinking about it at least.
Now, I don't 100% remember how much each tower gives.
Wait,
but I know
they're going for it.
But I know it's like base 8k health once the Titan has nothing left. That thing's got to have at least probably 10,000 health. The minions just took half of it away.
Fine.
We see all 5 of the Kings grouped up on the right side. Oni minions will now push up on each end, the mid and the right, the more significant, because those are Oni fire waves that are just now meeting up.
Yeah, left side Phoenix on the respawn, so the Camelot Kings grouped up as 5 will not continue their march across the right-hand side of the map. Even had they stepped forward, Scream likely would have spotted them out. So good positioning from the jungle of the Solar Scarabs to remove even the slimmest glimmer of hope from the Camelot Kings. Only one bird standing between the Chaos team, the underdogs, and the completely exposed base of the Camelot Kings. Fire Giant, though, has worn off. So, slow play it. Get ready for this right side Phoenix. This time, the wave not pushed up on left means the Camelot Kings can't just split push the map. So, the Solar Scarabs, they've got themselves a very strong winning situation here. The path is clear. Fire Giant, left side Phoenix, couple of kills, then the game.
CaptainTwig, not going to get caught out by Scream. He'll be able to march his way over back towards the jungle. Speed buff can be down for a little while. So for the Camelot Kings, their last line of defense, that left side Phoenix, you can already see that BigManTingz is trying to push that wave back up a little bit further and maybe give their team another opportunity to try and go for that left Phoenix. It will be a weakened one, so it's going to be not fully healthy the next time that it does heal itself up. But with the Trebuchet in that lane, it's not much the Camelot Kings can do to hold back.
Are they going
We're approaching our 3rd Fire Giant movement, which is wild to say that we're 27 minutes in and we're on Fire Giant number 3. But the Solar Scarabs should be able to take this one with no contest by the Kings. Nobody even willing to step up into that area.
Can't blame them when you're playing into a gold deficit like this. Approaching, what is that, 13,000 or so? 14. This early in the game, pretty significant. Still working on some of those finished items for the Camelot Kings. Haven't really upgraded all those starters just yet. CaptainTwig just now ticking over to level 20. If even, won't be able to get back to base in time.
Ooh.
The Solar Scarabs, they're already here.
BigManTingz will eat some damage from the Retribution Shield. Phoenix about to respawn. It will go down pretty swiftly, unless the Camelot Kings have anything to say about it. They don't have much. Phoenix hasn't gone down quite yet, but it'll only take a moment for one of these carries to be able to drop it. So that's right side bird. Mid will be about another 10-15 seconds before it's back up and ready for sieging from the Scarabs. Their last line of defense, that only healthy Phoenix that they have left on the left side, may be their saving grace in these fights.
Could be. Probably won't see a hard defense here from the Camelot Kings. It's pretty clear. The fight is true when Sanctified Fields gets dropped. That's when things are serious for the Camelot Kings. Otherwise, the onus belongs to the Solar Scarabs to break this base. Easier said than done, even with this massive lead.
Ball out by Inbound. Freeze will catch Variety, but he's the only one CC'd by that. The Phoenix still stands for only a moment longer. Fear No Evil will push Stuart and Scary D out of the way.
There
Inbound pulled in. The Sanctified Field will lock down
Phoenix
the support of the Solar Scarabs, and the Phoenix living on its last feather at this point. Scream dives in, and an ultimate from Genetics to keep BigManTingz alive. Scary D will help take out the Phoenix, but he just avoids the root, able to use the beats to get himself out. Variety goes in, finds a triple Eagles rally. Scary D is low. Stuart able to get out thanks to the help of his speeds, and that's Genetics who will go down to Oboronic.
Solar Scarabs hanging on here. Will not keep up their siege. Sure, they take down that mid Phoenix, but that was much more difficult than you would have expected, considering the HP it was at. Phenomenal abduct. Genetics deserves every bit of praise we can put on him. because that was really all him on the defense, choosing the targets like a precision scalpel. Hey, we need to kill Inbound? Got him. Hey, we want to chase Scary D? Got him. Forces multiple beads as well. The Solar Scarabs, though, with this massive lead, even in those situations, will not lose out on much. Bobby already on the respawn. Mid Phoenix taken, right side Phoenix taken, Pyromancer taken. It's like a Liam Neeson movie. Just might as well work your way over to that left side of the map and taken the last Phoenix.
Blue buff at least is up for CaptainTwig and Variety to grab, so that way Variety can have a little bit of extra CDR and at least have a buff to his name, because feels like it's been so long since Variety's been able to actually get something for himself on this right side of the map. There's been constant pressure by Scream from minute 1 of game 1 all the way up until this point. With 3 to 14 on the kills, the Solar Scarabs with a significant lead over the Camelot Kings. And now we can see the Scarabs grouping up left side of the map to try and push down the final Phoenix.
Game's getting dangerous, though, isn't it? Feels like the Camelot Kings are going to hit that inflection point pretty soon. Genetics getting pretty tanky. Nearly 6 items slotted on everyone from the Camelot Kings. Twig has finally finished up that Bumba's Hammer, looking towards a little bit more penetration. The damage output clearly there. The Solar Scarabs, if they lose out on this team fight, the Camelot Kings, if they can keep the bird and win the fight, might just bring this game back to an even state.
Keep your eyes on Scream and Scary D. They've got an easy path into this fight from the middle lane. CaptainTwig eats the ult from Scream. The wall from Inbound will zone away Genetics. Some good damage out of oBoronic. There's not much of a defense for this left Phoenix. That one's going to go down with very little contest from the Camelot Kings. Variety will just walk in to slow down Scary D, but now the Camelot Kings in an even worse spot, as all 3 Phoenixes are gone and no safety nets left except their own Titan.
How much worse is it really? Right side Phoenix will respawn very shortly. Mid Phoenix was so delayed. The Solar Scarabs took so long to clear that one out. I think we will be seeing another double Phoenix respawn from the Camelot Kings before the Solar Scarabs can get to it. Previously, the Solar Scarabs were there on right Phoenix on respawn. They were on mid Phoenix on respawn. The Camelot Kings will have a little bit of time for those Phoenixes to regenerate. And we saw what even the slightest regeneration on the mid Phoenix did on last base defense. It was difficult for the Solar Scarabs to close out this fight. Every single time this Titan survives a Fire Giant power play, the Camelot Kings are getting closer and closer to finding their win condition. Itemization's looking pretty good. Heartseeker, Titan's Bane, all done for BigManTingz. He's full build. He's about as strong as he's going to get. Only thing you could do now is upgrade those relics and look at potions. Only about, was that like 600 gold for CaptainTwig to finish his build. You've got Variety hitting critical mass as well. Netrioid just finishing up some penetration. That's a luxury item on Olorun at this point. I'm not certain that this game is as one-sided as it appears, and even the Camelot Kings reflecting that in map state, grouping up on the right-hand side. It seems like they're willing to at least look for a pick here. Previously, it was, hey, let's hide in the base. Things are changing.
CaptainTwig pushing up the wave in right now that it's no longer fire minions.
This is
mid
smart.
lane, though, and Scream, maybe an opportunity for a back door. CaptainTwig was going back to base, but it stopped his back. Variety instead is the one to now defend against the mid Phoenix. That one may go down, and so might Genetics. Has the Phantom Shell to get past the wall. Scream is here. Sanctified Field in the backline will keep Genetics alive. CaptainTwig will not stay alive, as it's oBoronic to snipe out the kill. Centaurus used by Stuart. And still 2 ultimates up. Mid Phoenix about to be pelted with fire minions. Not much time left on the clock for the Camelot Kings. If they're going to strike, the time has got to be now.
Yeah, Titan already taking some damage. Mid Phoenix taken down. Now the Solar Scarabs can just delay this back from the Camelot Kings. And it is a back from the Camelot Kings. Just a bit of an overstep from CaptainTwig cost them that engagement. Nearly able to shut down Stuart, but with both relics available, gotta put respect on that survivability.
Scary D avoids the abduct, eats some damage from Netrioid, but the enhanced Fire Giant over to the Solar Scarabs. We are 4 Fire Giants deep in this game. We're 34 minutes of play in, and the Solar Scarabs with a 20,000 gold lead, 33 minutes in. This is getting tougher, though. I mean, I think you're right to put it that way, Miff. It's just tougher for the Scarabs as this game continues to go on. Kings, CaptainTwig, a couple hundred gold maybe at most from getting Titan's Bane. Jotun's now upgraded for BigManTingz to give him a little bit of extra lifesteal when he falls down low. Camelot Kings are holding out, to say the least.
It's an ominous feeling when you could say the Camelot Kings are not completely out of this match, regardless of map state. Though the Solar Scarabs have got a much clearer win condition, the minions already did half the work. That Titan is hobbled. This Phoenix is hobbled. Enhanced Fire Giant means you don't need minions, so that's an easy pickup for the Solar Scarabs. The Camelot Kings cannot allow the Scarabs into their base.
Variety almost gets caught by Oboronic. Variety does find a disarm, goes in with 2.
What?
On the Eagles rally, the initiation.
Good
It's by
ult.
Camelot King. Stuart is the first one out of the fight. CaptainTwig's got the res on and will go in to fight against Oboronic. But now that Scarab's blessing is
He's
gone,
going crazy.
he will go down. Oboronic trades out as a 1-for-1. It's big heal. Comes through Variety at half HP, but look at Scream. Gonna run right into the throne room. And the Solar Scarabs will take game number 2 over the Camelot Kings. Not enough and not fast enough by the Kings to get back to stop this one from going down.
Wouldn't be a Solar Scarab set on a Sunday if it didn't go all 3 able to take down the top seed in a game 2 situation. Phenomenal play, to be sure, but the concern has to be there. I don't want to detract from a phenomenal win from the Solar Scarabs, but that was a long, hard-fought battle with a team that had every single resource. If I look down at the charts, they had more relics, they had more gold, they had more experience, and every single time, the Camelot Kings kept it interesting. I'm not certain many teams are keeping it interesting there. I'm not certain many teams aren't just ending the game that quickly. A 15-minute Fire Giant generally is a death sentence, but somehow the Camelot Kings dragged that to nearly 40 minutes. I need to see the Solar Scarabs close out these games just a little bit more cleanly.
Man, I was getting flashbacks to like Kaz Esports versus Soar in the console days way back when they held on for 20+ minutes, 4 Fire Giants,
Crazy.
multiple Phoenix wipes. I thought we were going to get a repeat, but no, the Solar Scarabs are able to close this one out, and they'll take us to game 3. That one's coming up right after this break.
Cerberus needs a new toy. Yes. I'm on it. Note to self, bring home bones of enemies for Cerberus to chew upon.
A cat's life is hard. You should always pamper them.
No. Excellent. This will do. Thanks.
The Game 2 power-up of the Solar Scarabs feels unavoidable. The Game 3 just cosmic force for this team is insurmountable. And speaking of power-ups, you at home can power up your setup with Alienware gear. Similar to the Scarabs Game 2 power-up that gets them to Game 3, you getting yourself to more SMITE ranked victories, all you got to do to get that power-up is head on over to smitegame.com/Alienware. Use code AWSMITE09 for discounts on select Alienware gear. And you can be playing on the same gear that we're using here on the desk and our pros are playing on over in the team booth. So thanks again to Alienware for being with us here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League and powering all of us up in order to do our jobs to the best of our absolute ability. My name is Dolson. Gormizer is with me after a Game 2 that, of course, goes to the Solar Scarabs here, Gore. And I think they finally are able to do what we've been talking about. You're not going to beat the Kings at this long-term, drawn-out, fighting over macro and farm. You got to just punch them in the mouth and play Solar Scarab Smite, and that's exactly what happens.
That is exactly what they do. Honestly, it's impressive because they come into this, swinging massively, and a lot of it is Scream, right? I think a majority of this early game is carried by that. And granted, you get a lot of presence from Scary D. You get good damage from Oboronic, things like that. But this was one of those games that when you look back and you look at how it started and you look at where the success came from, and you can very simply point to the strength point that is Scream and say that he is a massive reason they got to a victory state. Now, this is the thing that I think is the most impressive.
Tell me.
I think a majority of other teams in the league probably end that game in 24, 25 minutes. I think the Kings slow the Scarabs down. Just absolute great defenses on the other side that caused disruptions for the Scarabs. Individual picks, things like that just made it a little too difficult for them to try and break the base open completely. And so I think that it was a very impressive, long bout defense from the Kings, but just better overarching play. You got 20 great minutes from the Scarabs, and then 14 okay minutes from the Scarabs because the Kings started to play up to them. Right. If it goes another 14, the Kings win that game, but it's going to take a long time to try and get to that.
And, the Kings even gave themselves a win condition by the Titan getting poked down, opening up the left side Phoenix, things like that. That said, we talked about the Kings and their ability to team fight later on in the game. The Fear No Evil, Eagles Rally, Sanctified Field, Stinger, all of it, and the ability to team fight around that. The Solar Scarabs just never let the Kings get strong enough to win a team fight, right? You can have a better team fight, but if you're so far behind in the game, your damage won't stick the same, and the Scarabs just never let the Kings get to that point. So really love what you see out of the Scarabs here in Game 2. And this would actually be a pretty impactful win here, Gord, because, again, remember, the Kings white hot right now.
Yeah.
They lost a game to the Leviathans earlier on this phase. They've been near unstoppable since then. And on the flip side, the Solar Scarabs have lost tons of Game 3s, but beat the Valkyries 2-0 in the last set that they played, maybe build up some momentum for this team. A win in Game 3 over the Kings could be just overall energy changing for this Solar Scarabs team, and we'll see what the composition starts to look like here in Picks and Pans for game number 3.
Yeah, and that's honestly what I'm looking at right now, all right? I think the Kings, you have a lot of pressure on you because you want to stay number 1. This is the second time that you face the Scarabs this phase, so theoretically you should be able to take this one and find something to be able to get your heels dug in and push back. But I think if you're the Scarabs, that was such a good play. And again, I said it's very easy to point at Scream and say, hey, this guy's the reason that you won. But then you look at Boronic's damage, you look at Scary D's damage, both of them having a lot of impactful play, and then some really great walls from Inbound. And while they might not have closed it out as fast as some of the other teams could have, I think they played really well to make sure that Kings defense, despite how stellar it was, did not just result in a victory. And so I like the adaptations that the Scarabs made going into game number 2. And if they can keep that kind of presence up going into game 3 and, like you said, find a win here, that's absolutely, it's absolutely insane. It is such a good look for them, a good look, I think, even for the league, and maybe not so much the Kings, to have the team that is essentially 7th being able to at least push the Kings to a rare game 3. Again, the 4 game losses, this is the 5th game loss this phase.
Yep.
2 of those are to the Leviathans, and then a couple of those are them going to game number 3s. But having 2 3-game sets this phase, and otherwise having a very, very I would say, successful run. Makes things very interesting to see how this one will shake out.
What did we say the Kings are? 9-1?
Yeah.
And so they've played 10 sets. I guess that means, what, half of them have gone to 3 games if they have 5 total game losses.
Yeah.
Meaning, you know, the Leviathans, one of the actual set loss was 2, and then have lost 3 other individual games. So, or no, that'd be 4. That'd be 4 3-game sets, which is actually very impressive.
This will be the 5th.
This is now the 5th 3-game set this team has played through 11 sets though at this point.
Yep.
So 5. So over half they close out and they win in 2-0 fashion, which is very, very impressive. Not against the Solar Scarabs, though. No one is immune from the Game 3 Scarabs. And the Solar Scarabs themselves would like to get over. Because the Game 3 curse may still be around. Because they beat the Valkyries, but that was in 2. You know, now it's about getting to Game 3 and closing things out in Game 3. Loved what you saw from the Scarabs in Game 2. If you can bring that early pressure, if Scream can find a pick that is able to do what a Nemesis does, then it's a great option for the Solar Scarabs. Of course, it can't be the actual Nemesis. The Kings take that away. And then Chiron plus Ymir got the duo lane figured out already. Something very good for genetics and something very good for Netrioid to provide some setup and knockdown by the end of the game.
Yeah, Dragons, the Levis, the Bolts, now the Scarabs, right? A lot of very difficult, I think, to take the Kings to 3. So being able to put yourself on a list that was not a very long one feels really good. I like this adaptation from the Kings, though. I think immediately going for things that have either been banned away from you. Chiron, Ymir banned the second phase in game number 1, and then taken away Ymir, and then Chiron picked 3rd and then 4th for the Scarabs in game number 2. Getting 2 of the things that have been very important powerhouses for you. I think the Ymir maybe less so. The Chiron, very heavy. I mean, you had mentioned, what was it, like 4 out of 6 of the last games, not including these last 2 that we just watched. And then even more of those, like just a lot of Chiron emphasis from the Kings. They've got 9 games on him, not including this week. So like that is a heavy emphasis that goes up to like 11. He's won 9 of those. Like he is really riding this Chiron as well as you can. And honestly, I think it's been working for them. So this is a great start for them to get genetics onto an impactful player, or an impactful god, and get Netrioid back onto what's been working. Because, you know, jumping down from that, like Jing Wei has been there, but the Jing Wei hasn't been quite as successful as the other hunters, and then it takes a long time before you start seeing things. And even like then, you know, you see Neiths, your Ulers, things like that. Chernobyls, where it's like, okay, some of these are going mid, some of these are just high priority anyway and good in the meta. So I think this is a really good adaptation from the Kings, just to get back into their comfort zone.
Again, yeah, I agree. It's a well-rounded 3 that they've picked. Very strong, very standard picks for BigManTingz, for Netrioid, for genetics. And when it comes to the Kings, standard is about league best. So I think standard far from a bad thing for the Camelot Kings. Interesting ban. I guess Tsukiyomi felt particularly like a threat up against what the Kings had drafted here. Something I guess, yes, that Scream is able to get active on. Vamana banned out against CaptainTwig. I think Twig is probably the only player in the league right now that actively gets Vamana banned against him.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody else could. I could see I could see a world where Scary D started playing it, but like he's the only other player that maybe jumps to my mind that would start like picking it up. I guess Kirmi and on the Valks. That's a good shout from production, because Kirmi played it without scrims the first time around and made it look good.
Is Vamana getting like consistently banned against them? I mean, he's definitely playing it. I don't know. This is a conversation of semantics. Like, what does consistently really mean? But yes, Kirmi has adopted the Vamana as well. Only a couple of junglers, if we want to zoom the scope out just a bit, have been playing the Vamana. So Kali and Tsukiyomi both taken away from Scream. Daji plus Vamana taken away from CaptainTwig. So still some power picks still around. And then, the Erlang Shen also banned out earlier on in the pick ban phase, and the Osiris. And so how about the respect from the Scarabs towards Twig? Erlang Shen, Osiris, Vamana, Daji, all banned out. And Twig, of course, doesn't seem super worried about not being able to play Tsukiyomi or Kali. And he'll get to pick his pick last as an Ardio finishes the draft here for Variety.
I like that call. Just to delay this, hold on to Twig's pick. I mean, you know, you go back, you want to highlight things. Combo potential isn't necessarily there as much as it used to, but, you know, Naja has always been high on that list for things that Twig likes to play. You can also go back, you know, to the last game. I think the Hunbats looked fine and is open. So they have that opportunity.
Well, he's not going to be able to play Pele, Gore, because Scream is playing Pele. Pele's been super contested. So, oh, wow. Pele, talk about a carry style of God. If Pele gets off to a start like a Nemesis had, it can push that lead so effectively. But we have not seen Pele at all this phase, and we have got a lot of Smite games played this phase. I'm not even sure this year. I'm sure you're going to look it up and tell me. It has been infrequent, if ever, is my point here, and Scream seems to think that this is the option for game number 3.
No Pele.
First Pele game of the year.
First Pele game of the year.
All right. Why now?
Why now? Well, that one. Well, that would be because Erlang, Osiris, Vamana, Daji, Kali, Tsukiyomi, Nemesis are all banned. No.
And why is there a Thor Pele matchup in the jungle? What's going on?
I think that Pele, you know, again, like you said, if you're looking at what Scream's kind of potential, if I'm looking at where the Scarabs are finding success, a lot of it is Scream-driven, and then the rest of the team followed up. I think that Pele opens up a lot of opportunities for Scream specifically to kind of pop off. And I think you've got good chase down potential. I think you can follow through on people like the Chiron with your ult on Merlin. I think you can get some good pressure early on. And so, again, looking towards Scream to see what this Pele is going to be able to do. Thor, on the other hand, we've been seeing, again, small buffs, so his clear feels a little bit better, but also Hammer's double tap still feels really good. Your ult's still really good in the right hands. And I think that this is something that's kind of like Twig classic, right? Where it's not something that you maybe think of for Twig, but it's just such a classic jungle god in Smite that it should feel right at home. And it's got a lot of combo potential, right? Like, you throw down a wall, double tap with the hammer, Merlin, burn right there, someone's dead. You do that in front of a Chiron or a Ymir, you've got double walls. So I think you've got a lot of control to keep what are going to be very susceptible gods on the other side. I mean, nobody, other than, I believe, Chulainn, on the other side is going to get past the Ymir wall or a Thor wall, let alone both, if you drop your beads or if you have like a Phantom Shell. So I think that the Scarabs here are going to have a little bit of struggles when it comes to like mobility, but very specifically like disengage up against the Kings comp.
Feels like an execution battle in the jungle this game. Because we have seen the best of Thor when the player is on it. Everything's hitting. It is such a dynamic, game-changing pick. But we have also seen Thor where everything's missing, and you wish you had anyone else in the jungle. So there's execution on that side. And then Pele as well, Gore. Pele has not been in the meta at all. First Pele game of Season 9 at all here in the SPL. But Scream seems to think that this is the time to grab this pick, push down the gas a little bit, and see if you can get that snowball rolling. Yeah,
I'm excited to see if it's going to be able to live up to what we've seen in the past. I mean, there were a couple of players last year, even when like Pele wasn't necessarily like the meta. You know, Lasbra actually jumps into my mind, was able to pick this pick and look really good on it in certain circumstances. So I think that Scream is going to be able to find those. It's just consistency of the matter, whether or not it's going to match up. It's always that weird thing. Normally, and you'll see this sometimes where it's like, okay, this god is meta for a reason, and you'll see that consistently. Like Chernobog, it's very blatant and obvious. But then there's those gods like the Pele or any of the ones that haven't been picked up where it's like, well, why not, right? Like, what can you bring? I think a lot of this one is going to be a little bit of survivability issue, and I think that's going to be where she struggles the most.
Lots of questions in this one, Gormizer. First and foremost, can the Solar Scarabs win here in game number 3 up against the Camelot Kings? We'll go to J-Mac and Mifflin to find out.
Solar Scarabs can find a win. That might be the biggest upset of the entire phase, maybe even the biggest upset of the entire year. The number 7 seed against the number 1 seed in a game 3 scenario. The Solar Scarabs have been here many a time, and this time around, they're going to be taking Scream with Pele into the jungle. J-Mac, Miff, and Doug one more time. And I think out of everything, that's probably the biggest talking point on the Scarabs roster. I think it's the biggest talking point in the game, is this Pele matchup for Scream.
Yeah, Pele is interesting. I think that calling Pele a high execution god is interesting in that, yeah, you got to execute on it, but also she's pretty easy to play. As far as the game plan, it's walk up, auto attack, knock up, auto attack, one, auto attack, one, auto attack. Like, it is a very consistent combo. I'd equate the difficulty of playing Pele to the similar difficulty of playing like something like a Bakasura or a Habwad's. When do you choose your spots? When are you able to initiate safely? When are you allowed to actually stick into these engagements? I am curious to see how itemization has changed Pele. In the jungle, we've seen, Soul Eater at times. That's generally a Pele mainstay in like the solo lane, but still certainly will find some value there. The Volcanic Eruption, I believe the name of the ultimate ability. Been so long since we've seen this
Volcanic Lightning?
Hey man,
It's
it's
been a
Volcanic
while.
something. God of Volcanoes. Gives you AoE damage and will proc that Soul Eater on every single one of those auto attacks with the cone afterwards. So does give this god over a ridiculous amount of sustain, maybe with like heavy executioner or something along those lines. You're not exactly building a whole lot of attack speed with Pele, so could find some value there as well. What she does bring though, by rote, is a whole lot of damage and deceptively good initiation. A Blink knockup, it's pretty similar to like a Blink Kakan ult.
Could be. I'm also surprised that we haven't seen her just because of some of the new items that came in with the seasons. I mean, when the glyphs got introduced in Season 9, we got the one on the Jotun's Rat that gives you more lifesteal when you fall below the threshold. She goes under half, and then she gets the Jotun's proc same time. I was watching people go from like 20% health to 100 with like 2 abilities. So I'm a little shocked we haven't seen any Pele, but maybe some of these other junglers just a little bit better out there. We are going to try and get you back into game. It's going to be a quick little remake as we get these guys right back in as quick as possible. So trying to maybe break down these little matchups a little bit as well. Thor, something we've seen a little bit more as of recent, a couple of games here and there, but has also shown mixed level of success so far.
Yeah, I think the most recent change to Thor, I mean, quality of life, sure, but one of the main weaknesses of Thor previously, before the change to his hammer no longer dealing reduced damage to minions, was that jungle clear. Sure, you've got the global presence. You've got really good early game fight thanks to his passive, but you couldn't do it because you were so busy clearing back camps. You were so busy clearing out your buffs. Now, Thor's got a little bit easier time working his way through the jungle. Some of the itemization changes, I'm sure, going to fit him very well. I am curious to see the pacing of it, but I have been watching a lot of these SPL junglers. They all stream, and they've all been playing a lot of Thor.
Well, maybe we'll get to see what that Thor can do. But before we can see what the Thor versus the Pele matchup can look like, we are going to throw it to a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Apologies for the delay. We are jumping right back in to game number 3 with the Solar Scarabs and the Camelot Kings. J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug. As a reminder, in case you may have forgotten from a few moments ago, he's bringing you the calls for our 3rd game. And it wouldn't be a Solar Scarabs matchup if we didn't go to 3. And talk about potentially one of the biggest upsets of the season, at least of this phase, if the Solar Scarabs can manage to find a Game 3 win over the Kings.
Only thing that would have been a bigger upset if it was with the Valks, right? That's simply how seeding works.
True.
CaptainTwig, not in a position to really take the fight. Variety has not took over 2 until just now, so no way he can step up to that totem of coup. I'm expecting a pretty contentious pace to this early game. A lot of early game pieces.
Whoa.
Happening.
Scream immediately against CaptainTwig. A jump in by Scary D. Hammer out by CaptainTwig. We'll get him back to the tier 1. But there's that deceptive damage initiation you were talking about with Pele.
Blink, knock up, you're stuck. You're taking 2 auto attacks just about no matter what. 3 if she's got that first ability. Something classed.
Pyroclast? There we go.
It has been a while,
It's been
man.
a hot minute. I'm trying to think. I think the last time we saw it was at like the end of phase 3.
Scary?
Scary D, close. Fair swipe? Not enough. Second one just off the mark. I think the last time I remember seeing Pele was when Aurora ran at support in like an end of phase game against the, I think it was the Dragons that really didn't hold much significance. Here, we're getting a nice refresh. So Pyroclast, Magma Rush, Volcanic Lightning.
I won't
out there.
A knock up, beam, ultimate, and speed
She
boost.
threw a rock at him.
That's
a very hot rock at him.
That's all you need. Genetics pulled back in. Stu did not have the heart bomb just yet. Is it the Kings getting aggressive?
Netrioid dashed in. Stuart frozen by Genetics. Hit by the one from Netrioid. Hit by the Masterful Shot. And frozen down. Hit by some damage from Genetics. Both of the Solar Scarabs players of the duo looking a little worse for wear. Luckily for them, purple buff is up and they can find a way to get out of lane at least for a moment.
Potion to potion, both teams in the duo holding on to at least 1 health pot each. Netrioid giving over a little bit of healing with that passive though might just give the slight edge over to the Camelot Kings, especially with the poke going as it has been. Healing for Stuart though, should be able to match up. Again, Cupid's heals also free, by the way, as long as you're not the one picking them up. It literally gives you more mana. If Inbound takes all 3 of the hearts, well, Stuart got a free ability and then some. So, as long as the fights start to slow down in the duo, the Solar Scarabs should be able to find equilibrium and have already done so. Some of the changes to Heart Bomb, additional minion damage means that pressure should belong to the Solar Scarabs as well, at least for the next level or so. Once you get Centaurus available, Shards of Ice, the fight potential will likely lean back in favor of the Camelot Kings, but fortunately for the Solar Scarabs, safety net from the Scarabs' Blessing should keep you alive.
So when you play Cupid, do you ever get the teammate to actually pick up your hearts even if they don't need them to give you that mana? Or do you have the ones who go, I'm full health, I'm not touching those hearts?
I load in with a high-res tag. If I'm pinging something, they're doing it, all right?
Oh, is that how it goes? It never works for me.
You're using the tag.
I am.
You gotta learn, like my dad's high-res.
But I'm also usually playing support, so I'm probably not playing Cupid.
Oh yeah, nobody cares.
I guess if I'm in Assault I do sometimes, but nobody ever picks up anything in Assault. Except the orbs.
I'm not playing Assault, so I wouldn't even know.
Unfortunate.
I'm a Conquest guy.
That was fun. Assault is good to kind of shut your brain off really late at night, though, so. But 4 minutes in, no kills just yet between the teams. Not much of a gold separation between them either, about 200 up, at least for the Camelot Kings. Variety has a slight XP lead, but that should be alleviated once this wave goes down over towards Scary D. Large rotation by the Kings over towards this blue buff. Hasn't spawned in just yet. Even Genetics expending some of his time to get here. And that's going to slow down Genetics farm, CaptainTwig's farm, because they are waiting for this blue buff. It's still got a few more seconds before it's back.
Scary D will make the rotation in. Fortunately for him, Twig has already left, so not a whole lot of damage there. On the other side, plenty of damage.
Netrioid has the Centaurus, but can't get to it, and will hold on to it for another day. First blood to the Hunter of the Scarabs as Stuart picks up the kill, and a blue buff invade goes over for Scary D, able to secure that buff for himself.
Looked to me like Scary D pushed it out of range of the Glacial Strike, so clean play, great transformation, secures himself that blue buff. Nearly lost it out regardless. It was 6 HP on the buff. Maybe had Genetics been a little bit closer, could have landed that auto attack, but great play for the Solar Scarabs. Usually when you make a rotation over towards the duo lane this early as a jungle, you're just losing the blue buff. But Scary D able to do it all on his own and continues to slow down Genetics farm. We're 5.5 minutes in. Genetics still doesn't have access to that ultimate. Finally does. Tick over to level 5. A full level deficit in the jungle already as well. You're expecting Pele to get a lead. She just maneuvers the jungle a little bit faster than Thor will, regardless of the changes to the hammer. But this amount of a lead this early on does not bode well for the jungler of the Camelot Kings.
And Crusher as a first item. So we were curious about what the build path was going to be. Things like the Soul Leader, the Jotun's Wrath potentially as an upgrade option as well. But Scream instead will just go for more raw damage when those abilities do end up hitting. And a slight bit of attack speed as well, though
That's
the
big.
attack speed not as significant as it used to be, though. Used to be, what, like 20% you got, down to I think now 10% on that item. So still gets something, but just values that power maybe a little more.
Just significant. I mean, Pele is an auto attack god. Sure, she's got, you know, an ability knockup, an ability beam, essentially, but it's all to facilitate the auto cancels. You want to start with your auto cancel on literally every one of your abilities. Every single one is auto cancelable. So having a little bit more attack speed and being able to utilize the damage from your ultimate a little bit more consistently makes great sense to me. You've got really good poke potential, great ways to apply that Crusher passive. So I do really like this itemization from Scream early on. The only thing you're sacrificing is a bit of that CDR. But that's a sacrifice that made across the map as well. CaptainTwig, Brawler's Beat Stick in that first slot, not even moving towards Bumbas. You want CDR on both these picks. It's just a question of where you're going to get it.
Blue buff this time will not be defended by Scary D. A good wall from CaptainTwig zones him away from that buff. And the Solar Scarabs will answer back with a buff invade of their own. Purple goes over to Stuart and Inbound. Totem stolen away. Scream goes in. Fields of Love will lock Genetics in place. Centaurus from downtown. Not enough from Netrioid to help out his support. As Inbound goes down, a Duncan by CaptainTwig though finds two. Scream has the ultimate to dash himself on out of place, and a Spirit Ball on top of CaptainTwig. But Inbound did not get as far as he'd wanted to. Circle protection dropped by Oboronic. In goes Scream once again. And Oboronic, credit to the kill. A dash onto CaptainTwig. No hammer left. Who's got the last hit to grab it? Will it be Scream? Will it be Stuart? Pyroclast just off the mark, but Scream will still be able to grab that one with the help of Oboronic.
Man, the Solar Scarabs have come to play. Massive lead early on, but the fight goes long enough for Genetics to respawn. Silence, perfect from Oboronic, will secure the red buff for the Solar Scarabs, and yeah, it might look threatening, but what's Genetics doing on his own?
Inbound's pretty low, though. BigManTingz on the way. A level 9 Merlin could change this and at least pick up one for the Kings.
Bobby
Ice goes out. Blizzard is good, but Bobby doesn't have any man on the wall. He's going to hold him back. A freeze to lock him down, and BigManTingz to put him down.
Hey, that's a good play from Bobby. I mean, there was some pretty decent risk with BigManTingz making that rotation. So, rightfully so, sacrifices his life, and still a massive swing for the Solar Scarabs. But I don't know if you caught that chart. Gold not crazy separated despite a 4-1 game. Experience really the only thing keeping the Solar Scarabs ahead. But at this portion of the game, Experience the more important of the two.
70 gold at 9 minutes in with a 4-1 lead. I mean, it kind of echoes back to game 2 where Scarabs were up 8-2 when we were sitting at like, what, 3.5, maybe 4K. Maybe we'll see that come a little bit sooner this time. Freeze onto Oboronic, gets the beads away from the mid laner. Scary D is still here, finds the knockup only onto Genetics, who will be just fine. It's Variety versus Scream, and Variety is gonna win this one. The knockup is good, but Scream still got rooted in place. They'll be forced back to base, unless he can get some sustain elsewhere. CaptainTwig on the rotation means this blue buff may just go the way of the Kings yet again.
Variety will stop the back and have some backup around the blue, confirmed by CaptainTwig. Clean disengage from the Camelot Kings, and this is where that lack of gold disparity has been generated. The Camelot Kings keeping their pressure on the right side of the map. Third successful blue buff invade, sealing away these camps, slowing down the farm of the Solar Scarabs. Solar Scarabs, on the other hand, can still lean on some of these experienced leads. 2 levels in support. Bobby 8 to Genetics is 6. You got a level in the dual lane for Stuart. 10-9 up against Netrioid. It's difficult to leverage dual lane leads towards Gold Furies, but that difficulty is alleviated thanks to Oboronic's God selection. Circle Protection really does just simplify the objective play. Generally, it still is Pyromancer that goes down first, but with a lead as big as it is for the Scarabs on the left-hand side, wouldn't be overly surprised to see them try, the Scarabs that is, move in towards the gold and force a fight there.
Well, let's see where they decide to make their move. Scream level 9, still about a half level up over CaptainTwig. Mid lane dead even. Solo lane's also even. Stuart, though, with a pretty significant lead. It wasn't just Inbound who had a lead over Genetics. Even Stuart, with that kill and 3 assists to his name from earlier on and the 2 deaths on Netrioid, has allowed Stuart free reign in this duo lane.
Look at that build pathing from Scream. Erendite in second slot. We've been seeing a little of this specifically from Sam for Soccer. Really a massive fan of that item. But it does synergize very well with Pele. A little bit additional movement speed on the god that's already super fast. You need to close that gap with the ultimate to apply that damage consistently. CDR, massive power infusion. All things that Erendite affords Pele. Regardless, it's the Camelot Kings. They just keep doing plays like this. Pyromancer, there goes the entirety of the Solar Scarabs lead. Actually, now in the Camelot Kings' favor, experience though still belongs to the Order. So don't get too dejected, Solar Scarabs fans.
They've still got XP, but most of that XP is in the duo lane. 2 levels, give or take, separating both members of that side of the map. But now it's a question of where do the Solar Scarabs use that pressure they have? What do they do with Stuart having level 12 already? What do they do with Inbound being level 9 versus the level 8? So far, the Scarabs haven't really answered that question. They've just kind of been dawdling about the jungle for the last few minutes.
Well, the Camelot Kings answered the question for them. The only other feasible POI was the Pyromancer, was operative term. Camelot Kings take that for themselves. So if the Solar Scarabs want to take a fight, if they want to force an engagement, it's going to have to be on the Gold Fury. Fortunately for the Solar Scarabs, as you said, that is where the lead resides. But you still don't feel overly confident. You have to be concerned about the global presence of CaptainTwig, the nearly global presence of like a Centaurus as well from Netrioid. Will make it very difficult for the Solar Scarabs to really just dig in their heels and force a fight on that Gold Fury. But if it's ever dropped low and Oboronic is there, not really anything the Camelot Kings can do to out-secure the circle protection.
Hovered there for a moment by Doug was a blink on variety. So no beads, no Aegis, no shell, nothing like that. So he's not going to be worrying about CC anytime soon, or he might want to, but the Gold Fury is the interest of the Solar Scarabs with circle protection down. That one is as good as theirs, and an easy disengage from them as well. I say that, but Variety's blinked into the back line, finds Inbound. Maybe a bit of a panic ultimate there by
just
Bobby himself, gets himself out at least. But now the tier 1 could be under threat. The Camelot Kings are all grouped up around this mid lane.
And it's already burned pretty low. Oboronic and Scream are not allowed to rotate their way through, so the Kings will take the tier 1 tower and potentially some more.
Good double wall from Genetics. Oboronic used the beads to get out. Scream, half HP, wrapping around, but CaptainTwig's got the damage to take him down. Scream low, and Scream will make it out for only a moment longer. Variety to close out that kill and put a third one up for the Camelot Kings. Inbound with no ultimate means no life left. It's a double kill for the solo laner. But Scary D finds CaptainTwig backing in the mat side of the jungle to at least make it 3-for-1.
Usually the punish around Gold Fury is, okay, we'll kill you right after you drop it. The Camelot Kings wait 20 seconds and then initiate on the map, and well, it looks pretty good for them. 3-for-1 trade with the Solar Scarabs. We'll call that Gold Fury a part of that engagement as well. So we'll call it 3-for-1 and Gold Fury to the Solar Scarabs. So just about even? I suppose not, with the charts reflected as they are. Experience cut to 1,000 less than it once was. Gold still equalized. The Camelot Kings showing some fight back despite a nearly ideal start to this match from the Solar Scarabs. But this dead even game is still an improvement, I'd argue, for the Solar Scarabs. That said, I mean, at this time in the previous match, they were on fire giant, so I'm just wrong.
Well, an improvement, let's just say, on the average, more than anything,
okay,
from across their games, an improvement.
Yeah, make me right. That,
there you go.
I love that.
Here to help you out, Miff. CaptainTwig. Well, he won't need any help. The route into Rising Dawn a little far away for anything to have any real follow-up. Over onto the jungler. Scream will go in, finds the blink. Not immediate is good, but Volcanic Lightning right after, and a Spirit Ball from Oboronic will put down the jungler of the Camelot Kings. Nothing that Genetics can do to help him out. And maybe it's Genetics who will need some help. Fields of Love will lock him down. Ultimate there. Spirit Ball is good. Knocked by Scary D. And Genetics doesn't get a chance to get out of there. He gets CC'd to death.
Can the Solar Scarabs keep up their pressure? Not much on the map to do as of now. 2-man pick. I mean, if this was game 1 or 2, we'd be on the fire giant right now. Game 3, a bit more of a slow pace. Gotta play clean when you've got the first seed on the ropes like this. And that initiation from the Solar Scarabs, just so concise. Scream maybe in more trouble than I thought.
No, dash in from Variety, swipes are good. But BigManTingz zoned a little too far out by Scary D. Scream does not have his pass available at the moment, so he's gonna slowly heal back up to try and stay alive in this fight. Now going back to base and started on a tier 1 robe after that Aaron died, so not going for a raw glass cannon. Wonder if this is gonna be into one of the new Magi's cloaks. We do see the Cleric's cloak picked up.
Yeah, it's not gonna be anything besides Magi's Revenge, right? Like,
Gotta imagine.
Having some additional damage, the CC peel of the Camelot Kings. Hey,
speed.
I'm getting stuck to genetics. He froze me off. All of a sudden, I'm moving at him faster and he's taking more damage. Twig's trying to peel me off. Okay, the wall, I'm CC immune. I'm dealing more damage. I'm faster. Variety, the exact same thing. So the nature of the hard CC of the Camelot Kings draft might actually lend itself very, very well to this Magi's Revenge from the Solar Scarabs. Just whole lot of chase potential, whole lot of objective potential too. Pyromancer and Greater Scorpion looked at. Scorpion down, Pyromancer not too far behind it.
Quarter HP, BigManTingz over the wall, tries to grab with Blizzard, but will not find it. Be the Solar Scarabs grabbing the Pyromancer. Lead back their way. An ultimate from Scream just to disengage, but should be fine to have that one back up in just a few moments. Or at least about another minute or so until he has that available. So for now, what's the call for the Solar Scarabs? I mean, Pyromancer's down, Gold Fury for at least another minute. Fire Giant out of the question. Seems to be just a return to farm for the Order side team.
I'm not certain that Fire Giant's ever really out of the question when you have Circle Protection.
True.
Gold Fury's already pretty strong. Primal Fury would help out a lot. Maybe we will see the Solar Scarabs go there first, but individual picks with this composition from the Scarabs can go to the Fire Giant. It's certainly risky, but risky plays, I think, or I suppose necessary when you're playing into the first seed. You're struggling as a Solar Scarab now to really find that separation, even in these exchange wins, even in these objectives. The Camelot Kings maintaining some semblance of parity insofar as farm and gold. So, sure, Primal Fury, a great target, but I'm not certain that we can write off Fire Giant just yet.
Primal's back up. 5-man grouping of the Scarabs. BigManTingz will make it 5 for the Kings once he has joined the way. And the Kings are just spread out like a wall along the back line. Every single entry point has been cut off by at least one player. Now maybe a more significant grouping. Genix has the wall to lock in inbound, but he'll be able to squeak himself by. Feels the love, finds a little bit of value in the fight for Stuart. Variety down to a quarter HP, pulled back inside the circle protection, and popped like a balloon as Oboronic finds the first kill of the fight. Spirit Ball just off the mark to find Genetics. Scream will be able to walk out. It's 5 versus 4. CaptainTwig finds a big dunk, but now immediately has to find his way out of the team fight. Uses the hammer to port away. Scream goes in immediately. One more shot will do it, but Scream doesn't have the distance to close it, and now may have put himself out of position. The Magi's is now broken, and it's a 1 versus 3 Pyroclast miss. Scream goes down, but the Primal Fury goes to the Scarabs.
Value trade for Scream drags away 3 members of the Camelot Kings, and the rest of the Scarabs are able to take the objective for themselves. And this initiation from the Scarabs is frightening, isn't it? It's, hey, Circle Protection is there for damage. Hey, we've got Fields of Love. That's how we start the fight. Blink knockup from Scary D. Blink knockup from Scream. An abduct from Inbound. It is just unrelenting mud battles from the Solar Scarabs, and the Camelot Kings getting dragged down into their pace. With Scream dead for 10 more seconds, can the Kings really do this? No secure. All Inbound has to do is slow this down.
Bound will root Netrioid. Fire Giant's not going down as significantly as the Kings may have hoped for. Variety will try to play zone duty. Inbound in the middle of 4. Pulls Netrioid through the fire pits. Fire Giant is low, and the Solar Scarabs steal that one away. CaptainTwig goes down. Genetics right behind him. Only need one more hit, and it's Inbound to grab it. And look what steals at the end of the day. It's a heart bomb by Stuart.
Inbound goes absolutely crazy in the Fire Giant pit. Pulls Netrioid off for the DPS, buys time for the rest of the Scarabs to get there, absorb some of the attention of the front line of the Camelot Kings, and now it's the Solar Scarabs who have got the first seed back against the wall. Game 3, Fire Giant on 5, and 10 seconds left on 2 respawns. Could this be a 20-minute Phoenix?
Heavy Phoenix on the way. Scary D forces BigManTingz back. Variety has to get away from Circle of Protection. He's forced out. Some good damage from BigManTingz. Not enough to save the Phoenix. That one goes down, and so does BigManTingz. BoroniC finds it. CaptainTwig dumps it to the back line. Doesn't find much, though. Scary D, quarter HP. CaptainTwig, no HP. We could be seeing a repeat from game 1, but on the opposite foot, Mifflin. It's 5 versus 3 in the throne room, but there are 3 towers up. That is a healthy Titan, but maybe this Trebuchet can help out the Solar Scarabs. Variety goes deep into the backline to try and keep back Scream, who's falling low. Ultimate from Netrioid is good to slow them down. Scream is just barely out of there. Spirit Ball on the mark. Not enough damage out of the Solar Scarabs to grab the Titan just yet. 14 seconds on CaptainTwig. The Scarabs have got to pack it up and get out.
The Solar Scarabs know when to hold them and when to fold them. They drop the Titan down to half and reset themselves across the map. Plenty of gold to collect. Yeah, give me all of your jungle farm. Give me all the Pyromancers, the Greater Scorpions, the back camps, and your mid lane structures. A lead that was struggling to initiate, to establish itself for the Solar Scarabs erupts at about that 18-minute mark. Gold, massive for the Order side. Experience, even larger and still impactful based on the portion of the game that we find ourselves in. The Solar Scarabs have got plenty of time left on this Fire Giant power play. It's going to get worse before it gets better for the Camelot Kings.
I mean, last game we were looking at, what, 9K at almost 30 minutes in the game. Now we're looking at a 9K lead, 21 minutes in the game. The Solar Scarabs are just commanding these last couple of team fights. And look at what BoroniC has picked up. Not just an Obsidian Shard for this item, but went for the Sentinels. We've seen this one time before in the mid lane, where instead of picking up an early starter item, they've been holding out, and has already fully upgraded that to the Sentinel's Embrace.
Yeah, you get a little bit of protections, I suppose, with mitigations on Circle Protection. Just giving over some aura defense to your team might find some value. Curious itemization for someone who's been having such a phenomenal game so far with damage. Twig's got ultimate, right? Like, he's just out?
Oh, Heart Bomb catches him, and he is gone.
He got gamed on.
4th kill of the game for Stuart, 13 for the Solar Scarabs, and they are now poised. 35 seconds until CaptainTwig is back up, and only one person at the Phoenix. There's still a tier 2 tower for the Scarabs to go through, but no one else on the Kings but Genetics are here to even see what's happening. Are they just going to ignore him entirely? There's no wards. There's no wards. Genetics just now spots. Everybody's backing. And now Scream will notice. And the Solar Scarabs will leave the mid lane and head back to the tower.
Man, Stu, I don't know if that was on reaction or on prediction, but the stun onto a minion for the instant explosion to catch CaptainTwig's hammer. I mean, he just got gamed on, bro. That's big Stu in the house. And now the Solar Scarabs, maybe not in the best position to push to this Phoenix. You've only got about 10 seconds left on the Fire Giant power play, and the Camelot Kings have got every single resource available. But the Solar Scarabs, they don't get here often, so they're going to go ahead and push.
Wrapping around. 2 levels up over CaptainTwig, and a perfect angle to get in. Variety will pop the bubble. That's going to mark Variety, at least for the time being. A pushback by Scary D, but the priority is on the Phoenix. Variety going to eat only a little bit of damage. Scary D is low, but Scream finds CaptainTwig all the way back at the fountain somehow. Now Scream back in the midst of everybody will push back the Camelot Kings, and the Solar Scarabs will take the 2nd Phoenix of the game. Mid one about to respawn, but it doesn't seem like the Solar Scarabs want to stick around to drop it themselves.
In the battle of off-meta jungles, I think it's pretty clear who's come out far and ahead. 2-2-9 for Scream. And you fans at home can go ahead and look at CaptainTwig slash.
Sorry.
I'm not going to say it out loud.
Let's give a sorry over to Gormizer. I think that's his jungler for Fantasy League. That's gonna hurt the points a little bit this week, my friend. But the Solar Scarabs, if you're a fan of them, if you got any of them on your team, you're probably pretty happy right now as they take yet another Fury and extend that gold lead. We're at 10,000 up for the Scarabs. 24 minutes in, 12,500 experience to their name, and with only one person level 20 on the Camelot Kings, pretty significant for the Scarabs this early.
Camelot Kings, no stranger to this exact scenario. They were here in the previous match when we were able to keep things interesting for at least 35 minutes. This time, though, it feels a little bit more dominant from the Solar Scarabs, already starting to regroup around the Fire Giant. Only one Phoenix down, so the Camelot Kings have the potential to show up and try and put up a defense if they so choose. The longer the defense goes, the further that enhanced minion wave on the left side of the map will start working towards the base of the Camelot Kings. This is tough odds, but I think the Kings are right. If this Fire Giant goes down, I don't see a path back in for the Camelot Kings.
Could very well be curtain call if the Kings don't stop this one. There's an Oni Fire Minion barreling up the left lane, another Fire Minion wave right behind it. There'll be at least one more wave to stem the distance just a little bit, but with how powerful that wave is, it could very well do half the Titan's health just on its own. Variety, caught by the Spirit Ball, inbound, frozen by Genetics. Inbound's the one who's not looking so hot. CaptainTwig finds a big dunk in the backline. Variety low, but Variety's getting chunked out by Stuart. That's his 5th kill of the game. Spirit Ball just a little bit off the mark. Scary D goes in. Stuart dives aggressively at Genetics and picks up the double kill for the Scarabs. Meanwhile, the minions to the backline. Scream at the Titan. Can he get the damage? No, it will not be so. But he has forced the rest of the Kings to back away. The Titan low, but not quite enough.
Look, there's only two left for the Camelot Kings, and there's only like 1,000 HP.
Stuart's full. Oboronic full.
I think they got it, man.
BigManTingz and Netrioid have to put on a hell of a defense to stop 3, make it 4 players once Scary D gets here, and a Titan at 20% health. The Solar Scarabs, with the upset of the phase, have taken down the #1 seed Camelot Kings in a dominant Game 3.
If you can't outsmart them, if you can't out-macro, Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg strategy from the Solar Scarabs. They brought the action from minute 0 and just dragged the Camelot Kings into their pace. The Solar Scarabs enforced a map state where you had to meet them on their ground, meet them at their style of play. No one plays like the Solar Scarabs, and the Camelot Kings couldn't quite hang.
We went so far beneath, dragging through the mud, we're dragging clay across the board with them. The Camelot Kings just get pounced. Maybe not quite bedrock, but maybe getting close to that point though, but Camelot Kings just cannot stand up to the playstyle of the Solar Scarabs in game number 3. A dominant performance across the board from them, a knockout, drag-out game number 2, and all that leads to the Solar Scarabs taking down the #1 seed in game number 3. That's all from us on the cast. We'll throw it to the desk to try and close this one out.
My goodness, not what any of us expected here. Look, the Solar Scarabs is a very competitive team, a team that is always able to take games off of anyone, but the Camelot Kings, the most consistent team in the SPL up to this point, felt off limits. Felt like this is not one that any team in the league is going to be winning, but the Solar Scarabs show us that the right mentality and the right game plan can fix anything. The Thor pick gore just gets punished here time and time and time again. This isn't really even a Pele win. I think Scream existed, but it wasn't the jungle matchup that we figured would change everything. This is just the Scarabs outplaying the Camelot Kings in Game 3.
Yeah, man. I mean, they just look incredibly good as a unit. I think you get a lot of really good Khepri plays and a lot of key moments. You get a lot of good plays from Pele, and of course, I think you get the first blood over there from Stuart. I think that pretty much everybody on this squad got to step up this game, and you really got to see it a lot more. This one felt, like you said, much more like a Scarabs victory as opposed to like Game 2, which felt like a Scream victory into a Scarabs victory. It felt like everybody kind of all around was able to find a little bit more, hands-on plays, be a little more involved in it. Stuart, I think, is incredibly potent on this Cupid pick and is able to just get a lot of damage done. You get a 9.5 KDA as well. That just goes to show how safe I think the rest of the team was allowing him to play, considering all of these highlights. You've just kind of been relaxing on the back. No one's been focused on you. And in the right moments, you just absolutely 100-0 people. After a while, you're super far ahead, and it feels like you're going to be pretty much domineering here. So I think that the Cupid pick really had a lot of hands-on play here. I think that the Khepri and the Chulainn deserve shout-outs because of the capabilities that it set up, whether it was knockups, whether it was peel, what have you. Really opened up a lot for that one. So they kind of funneled all of that in to Stuart and to Oboronic as well. The Eset was very, very strong.
6-0-7 is Stu. 5-1-5 for Oboronic. Gotta say it, the cast didn't want to, but 1-8 for CaptainTwig in 5,100 damage on a Thor, only higher than his own support. Even Inbowned on the Khepri, able to do more damage than the Thor here in game number 3. You know,
that's gonna feel good, by the way. That win has to feel good.
Oh, for the Scarab.
Yeah.
Me saying
not for the Kings. No.
Me, yeah. Twig had less damage than Inbowned on Khepri that game.
No.
That's gotta feel great.
No.
No, you're right. I think for the Scarabs, it's got to feel fantastic. Because, they beat the Leviathans a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
They beat the Valkyries. They've gotten their wins. But this is a win like no team in the league has been able to get,
Yes.
right? Like, as of late, nobody's been beating the Camelot Kings. The Leviathans beat them once this phase, and that's been it. Beating the Kings has been very, very difficult to do, and the Solar Scarabs are able to get it done in 3. Talked about his Pele game in Game 3. His Nemesis game was all the rage earlier on in this set. Scream is now with me for the post-game interview. Scream, first and foremost, congrats. You beat the Camelot Kings. That's something no one in the league seemingly is able to get done nowadays. So what worked for you guys today? What do you think it was? What was the secret sauce that that gave you a win over the Kings?
I think that we tried to slow down our gameplay a little bit this week in practice. We wanted to be able to go into mid to late game without having the game be a complete scrap.
Sure.
So we wanted to basically be less scrappy this week. I think the teams we were playing, like especially the Kings, that's their playstyle, and I think getting a win versus that is really nice because it shows that we can adapt our playstyle. But I think, the new patch dropped, the DR changes, mixed up a few gods here and there, and I think it just kind of allowed us to get benefits in the draft, and I think we all just played great today.
Look, you talk about mixing things up, new updates. What brought the Pele about here in Game 3? Is that something in the new update change that, or you think Pele, for whatever reason, just fit the bill here in Game 3?
I actually think the Magi's glyphs are really good for a lot of junglers. I think the Revenge glyph in specific is really unique and really cool.
Right.
Pair it with an Orandite and the Revenge glyph. If you go on somebody 1v1, you have like 50% extra movement speed towards them, so you're always melee range.
Right.
You deal more damage. It's just, the Magi's before, it was fine, but now it's like you have a damage option to go with it, which can open up a defensive option, but also like for these characters that really need to do damage.
Right.
I think you can build a more offensive option with the glyph.
Look, Pele is a lot of fun to watch either way. And finally, Inbound came in here in the pregame interview and talked about it's a summer split, the team's kicking back and having fun. Did you guys have some fun here in this set?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Getting a win versus the #1 seed is great. It just shows that we can compete. I think we've had a pretty lackluster year so far.
Sure.
So a win like this is it's great. It's just great for the team, good for the morale, all of it.
Good for the team, good for the mental, and good for the league in general. Scream, congrats. Big win for you guys today. Excited to see what you do next.
Thank you.
So the Solar Scarabs, Gormizer, in 3 games take down the #1 Camelot Kings. And lots of great info there from Scream, really contextualizing a lot of what we saw during those games, where the slowing down of some of the scrappiness and look, guys, we can get to the mid game, and the game is in reach. We have faith in our ability to compete in some of these matchups. That said, that Nem game felt a little scrappy early on, but scrap, I think the definition of scrap is potentially kind of fluid. And here is the SPL Scarabs Twitter account, and I guess technically that's a bug, but I hate cockroaches, so I hate this meme. But it is a good meme.
Yeah.
It's Scream backdooring.
It just makes it,
the
it's just
Kings Titans.
wildly uncomfortable to
Oh,
look at.
God, doesn't it just give you the heebie-jeebies?
This is going to be wild. Have you ever seen Doctor Who? There's an episode called
no, I
Turn
haven't.
Left.
Yeah.
And anybody who's seen that will understand why this makes me think of that specifically.
Gotcha, but no spoilies, so we're
No
going to keep that
spoilies.
off the stream.
It's like 10 years old, if not older at this point, but no spoilies.
You're right. We're a spoilie-free zone around here. Yes, one of the wins that the Solar Scarabs got was Scream finding the opening, walks in, and takes down the Titan. Was like 10-0 on Nem, or something like 7-1 on Nemesis. So great win for the Scarabs.
And I think it's really interesting to hear the way that Scream was kind of dissecting it, because they were talking about the fact that they wanted to slow their game down. They practiced slowing their game down. If you go back to Game 1 where they lost, that was the scrappiest of them, right?
Yep.
I mean, immediately there's fights all over the place. Kills are going up, equal, and they're losing out in gold. I think making that adjustment into Game 2 and kind of knowing that was impressive.
Gore, would you believe me if I said we had more SPL to go today?
I would, because it's Sunday.
Because it's true. And we do have one more SPL set to go here this week. The Olympus Bolts up against the Valhalla Valkyries. Honestly, standings-wise, this is the next step from the style of upset we just got. Right, the top team versus the second to last team, and then the second to top team versus the last place team could be the makings of a similar style of set. Camelot Kings just fine. We're not raising the alarm bells just yet. They are 9-2, 2 games clear. Even if the Bolts win this set, the Kings will still be alone in first place at 9-2. The Bolts would then find themselves at 8-2. And so the eyes have to turn towards the Valhalla Valkyries, because think of the conversations we've had in the league and look at the standings now. Suddenly the Solar Scarabs 1 win away from dropping the Leviathans down to 7th seed, or the Jade Dragons down, depending on how the future sets go. Scarabs have shown us improvements. The Scarabs just beat the #1 team in the league, and every week it feels like are taking games off everyone else. Now it's time for the Valkyries score, I think, to take that next step as a squad.
And I'm excited to see it, man. Either we're going to come in for what we're expecting, or we're going to get a surprise, and I think if the Valkyries can give us a surprise, just like the Scarabs just did, it's going to be a really good phase.
One more set in this weekend in the SPL, the Olympus Bolts versus the Valhalla Valkyries, coming up next.